He won it?
He won it. And he had it. No joke. He was up for it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled February 13th City Commission meeting to order. I have no amendments or changes to the agenda as it was published. So do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the public have any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Pastor Wilson from the First Baptist of Newberry, if you would come down and give us tonight's invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would rise for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will follow directly. Pastor?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just are so grateful for the blessings that you are bestowing upon our town and our people. And God, I pray, Lord, that tonight that we are constantly reminded of your graciousness, your mercy, that is ever present and ever true. That, Lord, that we will be wise with the decisions we make, that we will be patient and gracious with our words, and that you are uplifted in every proceeding that occurs. That we will recognize that you, Lord, are the ultimate giver of all the things that we have, that we are to be called good stewards of the things that you have blessed us with. And so I pray, Lord, that even decisions that happen at a civil level, that it is done in a way that glorifies and honors you. And so, Lord, I pray that you are with every commissioner, every concerned citizen, every decision that's being made may be uplifted to praise and magnify your name. And so, Lord, may we always be reminded of the hope that we have in you through your Son, Jesus Christ. May we always be reminded of the things that you have blessed us with in this life. And Lord, may we always seek to bring honor and glory to your name in all the things that we do. In Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is one of my favorite things to do, and that is to recognize all of the people and organizations in this town that came together to make Newberry the Christmas capital of Alachua County. If you drove through Newberry, you saw the decorations. If you went to any of the events on any of the Saturdays, there was something going on Christmas related every single weekend from in December, right? It was just fantastic. The parade was great. The activities were great. The lights were great. And so this is the commission's opportunity and my opportunity to say thank you to all of these folks. So with that, I'm going to read off, we have the Newberry Christmas Heroes Proclamation. And that really is everybody, but the concerned citizens did something so unique that we'd like to take a second and kind of separate them out and honor them. So I'm going to get one of the plaques for the Newberry Heroes, and then we can all come up together and hand out the plaques and get a picture, or we can get pictures individually, whatever you and your organization wants. But let me grab one of these to read. So, Christmas is like candy. It slowly melts in your mouth, sweetening every taste bud, making you wish it could last forever. Rochelle E. Goodrich. Whereas Newberry has truly set forth the effort into becoming the Christmas capital of Alachua County, each Saturday leading up to Christmas, Newberry celebrated the season together. Christmas cheer was felt all December long, and whereas the Christmas tree lighting ceremony and vintage market have become a staple, they kicked off the Christmas season, bringing the whole town together in our gingerbread village. And whereas Newberry's third annual Light Up Newberry event encouraged our citizens to meet the challenge and decorate with vigor to transform our community into its own winter wonderland. And whereas the Christmas parade and sixth annual Christmas on the Square entice people from far and near to feel the joy and magic of Christmas in Newberry. Whereas in the dedication of many hours, Newberry Main Street Watermelon Festival Committee, Countryway Town Center, the Newberry Area Chamber, Sycamore Lane Vintage Market, and the City of Newberry staff led the charge as Newberry's holiday heroes this year. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Mayor Jordan Marlowe, do hereby proclaim and salute all of those organizations as Newberry's Christmas heroes. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 13th day of February 2023. We have ones that say for each and every specific organization. So who do we have? We have Main Street I see tonight. Do we have the chamber? Anybody from the chamber able to make it tonight? I think she said she wasn't going to be able to make it. That's fine. We'll make sure they get theirs. For anybody from the town square, able to make it tonight? Christiana here. Vintage Lane Market. No. Then it's going to be it's going to be a Main Street show. So let me find Main Streets. Miss Francis, are you going to come down with your entourage? Travis, our photographer, isn't here, so. Oh, we got Pastor Larry back there. All right, come on in here, and we'll get a picture, and then if you've got 10, 15-minute speech figured out, then we'll hear that, okay? Yep. All right, you got a couple words?
Working together to make a special season for the town. It was nice to see all the families and hear all the nice comments from everybody. And I look forward to working with everybody again.
All right. And I tell you, she's being humble. Main Street, every single one of those, just absolutely killed it. All those gingerbread candy canes, everything, and I didn't even have to help take them down. That was the best part. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our concerned citizens have always been part of Christmas, and they've always done events and those things, but this year, they stepped out, and I'm going to let Commissioner Maison, if he wants to say a few words. You want me to put you on the spot? No? You sure? Okay, all right. Well, I have a couple of things I want to read before I get to the proclamation. But they decided that they wanted to bless the town. And so they went and they collected some donations, and then they worked with our staff who went above and beyond to make sure that the folks who needed help were the folks that got help. And they took that money that they collected and they paid off people's electric bills. And if you want to talk about something that really just captured the spirit of Christmas, about what it's all about, trying to help each other, especially in our time of need. So I'm going to read this proclamation, but I just want you to know, before I do, here's a note from one of the recipients, and I have a card to give to the concerned citizens along with the proclamation. It says, "I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the generosity of the folks responsible for assisting in paying my electric bills to start off this new year. I am determined to remain strong and thankful for the wonderful folks of Newberry. It is my wish to someday be able to pay forward the kindness that has been given to me." So I will give you this card after I read this proclamation. And they raised $6,000, $6,140, and paid off 15 people's electric bills. That's 15 people who were able to keep their lights on during the holidays, able to take that money and give their kids and family a nice Christmas meal and some presents. And so with that, it is an absolute honor to read this into the record. "Never doubt that a small group of concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Margaret Mead. Whereas the Concerned Citizens of Newberry was established in 2014, has provided support, services, and assistance that addresses the wide variety of needs of Newberry residents. And whereas they have demonstrated profound levels of compassion and dedication to the residents of the community at large. And whereas the Concerned Citizens of Newberry has strategically designed and implemented programs addressing the needs and deficits, enhancing the overall quality of life within our community. Whereas recently they partnered with businesses in the community to support our citizens in need on behalf of the city of Newberry and Newberry community. And now, therefore, I, Jordan Marlin, Mayor of the City of Newberry, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim Thursday, February 16th, 2023, as Concerned Citizens of Newberry Day in the City of Newberry. I urge all organizations, businesses, and residents to thank the Concerned Citizens of Newberry for their tireless and compassionate efforts to make Newberry a place we are proud to call home. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 13th day of February, 2023. Concerned citizens, if you would join me at the podium. And Commissioner Maison, you're the liaison. You got to get down in here for this one.
Good afternoon, good evening. I am Jamel Cheeseborough, and I'm the chair of the but I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge a lot of the help that we did get from folks to put on a nice toy drive for the community, also to do the utility bill assistance. Greenfield Preschool, Sugar Refined, Body Collision, RPM Auto Repair, Coleman Construction, Watson Construction, Merrill Norman, Spring Hill Equine, Hypolita, City of Newberry, Pickett's Weaponry, Dollar General, and Hardee's helped us out with the toy drive. Those people that helped out with the utility services, Coleman Construction, Jordan Fairfield, Hines Electric, / Jennifer, Mills Electric, Lime Rock Production. So we would really like to truly thank those people for partnering with us to do what we did have an opportunity to do. A lot goes out to Commissioner Maison, who actually came to us and said, man, let's do something. Needs, and he came, he set the tone, and if you know, he is the health. And he did an amazing job, and so I'd like to really thank him for all the help and assistance that he has done with us, making sure that our citizens' needs are met. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Before we move on from this, I just have to give a special thank you, because it's great to have the idea, and it's great to get the businesses to donate the money, and all of that deserves thanks. But somebody had to sit down and go through people's electric bills and talk to them and reach out to them. Somebody had to do that legwork to figure out who needed this help the most. And so, Tammy, on behalf of the City Commission, we appreciate you. And would you please accept the Newberry proclamation on behalf of the Newberry Force? I know you're on a crutch. Can you stand up for one quick picture?
As long as I don't have to hold my dance partner with me.
I've got a whole stack of them here. And right at it, I know I am. Clear folder. Where's the clear folder at? It has. You know what? We're gonna pretend, Miss Tammy. And then when we find it, we'll bring that down. No one will see in the picture. Yeah, we know where to find it, right? Thank you so much. I'll take it. It always takes somebody behind the scenes willing to go above and beyond to make something like that happen. So thank you so much. Would you like to say a couple words? Please. I know this got to be a fairly emotional project.
Well, and I had a speech written so that I wouldn't embarrass myself, but this was truly a labor of love by the community. And when Commissioner Maison approached me, he's frequently in City Hall, and he sees the need that we have in the community. And as I called the 15 recipients, every one of them cried and said that it was a blessing and that it was a miracle. I went through an entire box of Kleenex because I sat there and cried with them as well. I think I even cried when I told Dallas. But, you know, this is what Newberry is about taking care of one another. And on Christmas Eve, my pastor was giving a sermon, and he was talking, you be the light that shines. And Newberry is truly the light that shines, that, you know, reminds people that there are good people in the world and all of the divisiveness that we see in the media and so forth. And I'd like to thank personally the concerned citizens of Newberry. You all have no idea what a difference you made in those folks' lives. And I wish you could have experienced the joy and the gratitude that I experienced. And it will carry me through for a very long time, remembering what this community is capable of.
Well said, well said. When we set this as an economic incentive and economic development to make Newberry the Christmas capital, I could have never have imagined the response that this community brought to that. And I'm so grateful to Main Street, to the concerned citizens, to the chamber, to everybody that stepped forth, and everybody's playing a part, and everybody playing that part together. You know, Main Street made it all the way up to the Florida Department of State, getting recognized for what they did in Newberry. And so I think you just said it beautifully, right? That's what makes Newberry special, is we are able to shine that light. Now, as the second thank you for all of that work, you do not have to feel compelled to stay for the rest of the meeting. So if you would like to now get up and just gracefully exit, no one will think badly about you at all. We need to give you a couple minutes. Some of us are on crutches. Not that we don't love people to stay.
Jamel. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, your commission likes to hear from you about things that aren't on the agenda, whatever's on your mind. So they set aside a moment at the beginning of the commission meetings for public comment. If you got something, announcements that you want to make, there's a 2-minute public comment. If you want to talk to the commission about something that's a little bit more lengthy, a little more controversial, we have a 5-minute section at the end of the night for public comment. Obviously, if you're here to talk about it, something on the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to talk about that before the commission takes a vote. So with that, does anybody have any announcements, anything they want to talk to the commission about at this point in the night? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That'll take us to our first public hearing, which is a quasi-judicial. I think Naeem stole my. Look in there and see if. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be entering into a quasi-judicial procedure. This means the commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board. That means we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule we must follow concerns testimony, and the substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. The standard states the following, and I quote, "All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record." Now I'm going to ask the attorney if he would read into the record the ordinance on this is first reading, right? On first reading into the record, please, sir.
Yes, sir. This is ordinance number 2022-37, LDR 22-16. An ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 220 contiguous acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from agricultural A zoning district to the planned development PD zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel numbers 01923-000-000, 01923-004-000, 01923-007-0001, 01923-008-000, and 01923-009-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is, at the appropriate time, is to pass ordinance number 2022-37 upon its reading by title only.
I'm going to ask the clerk to swear the applicant, staff, participating, requesting to speak. If you're here to speak on any quasi-judicial tonight, if you would, please stand up, even if you're not sure you're going to speak. It's a lot quicker if we can just swear you in right now, so we don't have to swear you in. Otherwise, we'll have to stop and swear you in again. Ma'am in the back, are you wanting to speak? No? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Does everyone have their right hand raised? Starting with my left, please state your name.
John Paul Perez.
Jerry Diedenbach.
Ryan Thompson.
Jim Fleming.
Bradley Turner. Connor Roberts.
Ryan Thomas.
Have everyone? Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
You have to do this one.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, we need to disclose any ex parte communication and disclose whether any member physically inspected the property. Ex parte communications are any conversations or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Martin?
None.
Commissioner Maison?
None.
I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have none as well. I'm going to explain the order of the presentations we will follow for every quasi-judicial item before us tonight. First, we will hear from the staff with a short overview. Then we'll hear the applicant's presentation with no time limit. Then the staff will come back and give us the report along with their recommendation. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak tonight will have 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant can cross-examine, staff can cross-examine, members of the making body can ask questions through the chair of the applicant or the staff or any of the participants. Then we'll hear final arguments. Then the city attorney will advise decision-making bodies applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we will deliberate, and after deliberations, a vote will be taken to approve the conditions, continue, or deny the application. That's the process that we're going to follow, and we'll start with the staff overview.
Thank you,
John
Mr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Paul Perez with the Planning and Economic Development Department. I am going to be presenting to you the first reading of ordinance 2022-37. This is not the first time that this board has heard this ordinance. However, it has not passed first reading yet, so we are here again. This is for a rezoning for 220 acres of agricultural land to a planned development. Because this board has heard this before, I'll be going through some of the changes and just a brief presentation on the actual request itself. So the order will be requests, some prior actions that have occurred on the ordinance, the development order, and then staff's finding and recommendation. Again, 220 acres. This is at the southwest corner of Newberry Road and Southwest 202nd Street. Here's an aerial image of the property. The blue line crossing the property is the Duke Energy lines. At the northeast corner, that 37-acre square, if you guys have driven by the property recently, it has been cleared on the interior for just a temporary agricultural use that'll be occurring on the property for the time being. And yeah, adjacent to Destiny Church and Tropic Traditions. As previously stated, the current zoning is agriculture. It does abut some existing commercial. The proposed zoning is going to be planned development. This is the current preliminary development plan that's included in the ordinance, which provides the land use allocation, as well as some of the interior circulation, access to the adjacent right-of-ways, and open space and other things that occur at a very conceptual level at this point. So prior actions, this was originally heard at the November 1st, 2021 Planning and Zoning Board. meeting, there was a recommendation to approve. At that meeting, there was discussion about putting the application on hold until the Gateway Corridor overlay standards were adopted by the City Commission. And so there was kind of a respite between it being heard by the City Commission. So it was on hold for several months. The City Commission did adopt those overlay district standards. This came back before the board for first reading on July 11th. It was discussed at length and then postponed to August 22nd. Staff pulled the item from that agenda because the development order wasn't ready at that time. We've been working diligently in between that time period and today to come to a development order that we hope addresses all of the commission, planning, zoning board, and citizens' concerns. The original request was for 750 detached dwelling units and 100,000 square feet of non-residential use. The request has since been revised. The dwelling unit count has been reduced to 636 detached and attached single-family dwelling units, and the commercial has increased from 100,000 to 140,000 square feet of non-residential use. The change in uses has a de minimis impact on the actual original analysis that was done. So there wasn't a need to revisit that in length. This is the preliminary development plan that you just saw. I'm going to go into some of the details of this plan so you can see some of the changes to the development order that have occurred. Those changes are phasing has been added. There will be 4 phases that will be constructed over a 20-year period. There's a 50-foot landscape buffer between Tropic Traditions and the residential and development. There's a 1-acre site for a future water tower. Required is paving on Southwest, well, it's actually a reconstruction of Southwest 202 from Newberry Road to the south property limit. There's an option for them to continue that reconstruction of Southwest 202 all the way down to Southwest 15th Avenue. And for that portion, the cost would receive a road impact fee credit for the reconstruction that's occurring. There is also a 15-foot section of right-of-way on the west side of 202 that's going to be acquired during the platting process. There will be traffic calming throughout the neighborhood. They are going to be incorporating sidewalks, multi-use trails throughout the residential component, and along the south and east limits, snow fences in the 10-foot landscape buffer. So this is the phasing of the 220 acres. Okay, the phasing, so phase 1 will be the main commercial component as well as the detached single-family portion. That isn't concrete yet. The detached and attached are still something that are maybe the applicant can elaborate more on. And eventually, when connecting to 202, is when the construction or reconstruction of 202 will occur. So that's not something that's going to happen immediately, but once they make that right-of-way connection to 202 or phase 4 commences, that reconstruction will need to occur. This shows the layout of land uses. Along Newberry is where you will have, Newberry Road is where you will have the commercial and some open space to provide that landscape buffer that the Gateway Corridor overlay standards try to achieve to keep that rural aesthetic along that corridor. The yellow lines just show some interior circulation. At the middle left, you'll see a blue square. That is the site for the future water tower. Connected to that is a dark green L shape. That's the 50-foot landscape buffer between Tropic Traditions and the residential component of the site. And the green and red arrows are the ingress and egress to the development.
John Paul, what's the light blue behind Tropics?
That is a future water tower site.
That's the 1 acre?
That's the 1 acre, sir. With the plan development, you get to create your own development standards. Part of that is lot size, lot width. setbacks, lot coverage. The detached single family are doing a minimum. Just bear in mind, these are minimums, not all the lots will be the size, but again, that's something that will come up during the platting phase. You'll be able to see the actual lots themselves. But as for a minimum, the detached will provide a 50-foot lot width with a 5,000 square foot lot area. The attached single family, which can be townhouses, duplexes, usually they have their own entrance, so they won't be using a communal entrance to enter the building. Those will be 40 feet wide with a minimum lot area of 2,000 square feet. And the non-residential component has its own appropriate setbacks and FARs. With that, staff finds the petition compliant with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulations. I'll withhold staff recommendation to the appropriate time, and the applicant has a presentation for you following this one. Thank you. That completes my presentation.
Well, did we leave anything left for y'all to present, or did we steal all the thunder?
We have a few items, thank you, Mr. Chair. I made sure to bring the cough drop too. Jerry Diedenbach, Mr. Rice, thank you. It's the pollen season, so it makes you sound a little raspier than normal.
I've been doing it myself.
Yeah.
Finally got a little bit of rain the other day to kind of wash some of it away, but
I was hoping, you can tell I haven't been doing this since last year because they're all stuck to the paper. All right, good evening, I'm Jerry Diedenbach, and Executive Vice President CHW and professional land planner. We're here tonight to do the requested zoning on the property that we've heard before this commission in land use. I'm going to cover a couple things. I think John Paul did a great job of explaining the higher end of the development, and I want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the project. With me also is Ryan Thompson. He's another AICP certified planner, and of course you all know Mr. Wiesman and the young gentleman that we're doing this for at the far end with the hat and glasses on. That's Andrew, who will ultimately make sure this is all done about 20 years from now, right, Andrew? All right. So we are requesting to change the zoning on specific property that is associated with the land use amendment to go from agricultural, obviously, to a residential use. And in this planned development, we have both residential and non-residential uses. The intent of this is to create a neighborhood-scaled non-residential use area inside of a master plan mixed-use neighborhood. In other words, people can work, they can shop, they can recreate, they can have a daycare center, and get a cup of coffee in the same neighborhood in which they live. We feel that this contributes to the City of Newberry's existing successes by increasing the housing inventory, specifically in the City of Newberry, on a product that is affordable by first-time home buyers and also by empty nesters as they decide to size down and not have to take care of that big yard anymore. It provides home ownership opportunity within the city limits that are also served by city utilities and amenities, meaning that all potable water, sanitary sewer, electricity, and everything will be built into the development. And we are also introducing retail, service, and professional employment opportunities within walking and biking distance to homes. In this overall development, we have just over 20 acres of commercial land in here. And if you think a good analogy is the intersection of 16th Boulevard and 43rd Street in Gainesville, where the public shopping center is with all the associated stores and retail and post office around that, that's about 10 acres. If you go to the other side where Fresh Market and Northwest Seafood and Five Guys Burgers is there, that's about another 10 acres if you include all the shops behind there. And some of that professional office places, like where my dentist's office is and where lawyers and accountants are. So this truly gives the opportunity for about 140,000 square feet of commercial uses, which is pretty significant. You could have an anchor grocer here someday in the future. And this is a 20-year project. This project also from the start has neighborhood-wide recreation trails and amenities available to all the residents and their guests. And as you all know, it's a little bit challenging because there is a major Duke power line that slices through here at a pretty sharp angle and eliminates a lot of land from consideration for development. This is our timeline. We started this process in June of 2021, not quite 2 years ago, but we had a pause in the middle while the city adopted the Gateway Corridor Overlay District Standards to determine how commercial lands would develop along the corridor, as well as how residential lands would develop, and what those homes would look like, or more specifically, how they would not be seen from Newberry Road. We had a second time where we took a little pause in this application to address new requirements, and we also used that time, as John Paul said, to get the development order together on what the obligations are of the developer in this project and when those obligations are due. So this map with this green squiggly line is the city limits of Newberry on the eastern side of the city. And you can see the 220 acres exist primarily, I know the laser doesn't work on the screen, but right about in the center of that map. This area is right at the edge of the urban services area. So this is the last place where you would put potable water and sanitary sewer. Moreover, if we color that map, you can see that what this project really does is it keeps growth focused inside the urban core and the urban services area where potable water, sanitary sewer, and other utilities should be available. By doing that, it reinforces a clear delineation between urban uses that are inside the city and a green belt that wraps around the city and goes up to that white area on the right side of the screen, which is inside Alachua County's urban cluster, and that's the Jonesville Activity Center, about 3¼ miles to the east. So this is the last portion on the east where urban scale residential and non-residential development would occur. The rest of that area is outside of the urban services area. And by doing this, what we're effectively doing is we're protecting all that area to leave it for large lot residential type development or small farms or large farms. So you all have adopted in your comprehensive plan and land development code regulations that say this is where we shall develop inside the circular area on the left side of the map, and this green area we're going to keep as our more rural portion of the city. This development lies within Zone 3 of the US 2741 and State Road 26 corridor overlay. And so it is largely within the 500 feet of State Road 26, so it is subject to the corridor requirements, meaning that there are specific roadway and landscape buffers along the frontage of this property. You all remember that you adopted standards. You have no metal buildings up against the highway, and the uses that you have against the highway are restricted in the way that they look because you want to protect the city of Newberry's quality of life and aesthetic. Along with those specific use standards, we've designed this PD or plan development to respect that and to really create a neighborhood community that you enter into. And if you think of some of the newer communities around the county, you know, you come in through perhaps a commercial or professional or office area, and then behind that sits the residential neighborhood. In this development, we will have architectural site design standards that will apply over the entirety of the property, and we will also have specific signage requirements so that it's consistent with your comprehensive plan and land development codes. So here's the 220-acre rectangle that largely goes east to west in shape. There's a Hoffman parcel on the north side, and there's another parcel adjacent to that, and those 20 acres have been turned into commercial land use. Along the east side of the property, 202, we are bounded to, when we reach that point, or if we activate the fourth phase early, to make improvements along 202. We realize that that is a very narrow corridor. It is a tree-lined street. And one of the things that we've talked about with staff, which is not yet adopted in your plan, which is fine because it'll be some time before we get there, is this idea of a shady lane type street that might preserve the canopy. We do not want to make any real changes to that, but we do want to improve the safety and drivability, and we think, 20 years in the future, there may be something that needs to be done. Accordingly, we will preserve along the eastern side of the property over here right-of-way such that when the eastern side of the 202 or the western side of these properties develop, that widening could occur in the future. We will not preclude the ability of the city to make a wider, better street there. Okay? Along the overall west side, Mr. Fleming has a private street over here at 218th, and if you haven't taken the tour out there with Jim, you ought to. It is really amazing. I went out there with E.J. Bolduck, who's one of my business partners and a professional landscape architect, And we spent a good couple hours and rode the perimeter, rode up and down the aisles, and I never knew there was such a solid commercial, like industrial grower here that's supplying plants across the southeast United States. And then Mr. Fleming took us up to his other nursery up toward the city of Alachua. I didn't know that that business was as robust as it is, and appropriately, we want to protect his ability to conduct commerce now and into the future. He told us his stories of South Florida, how he was kind of run out as the development got up close to him, and he never wanted to see that happen again in his lifetime or others. The future land use map, as you see here, shows agriculture, but we are actually going to request a planned development, and I believe it is your next item on here. The zoning is agriculture, but we are requesting a PD. And so John Michael had a good picture of this. I was a little lost in the shades of blue, so we're going to try our color version here, and maybe this will pop a little bit better. When we do land use planning, the first thing we look at is what happens along the edge. So specific to that, here along the south and east edge, we've placed restrictions on these lots that there has to be a 10-foot separation there where nobody can put a shed, nobody can do anything in that back, and that has to be left alone as natural space. You can fence it, and you can have a uniform fence there, but no development can exist in that area along those lots. Okay? I know this isn't going to go in A, B, C, D order, but I think it tells our design process a little bit better. The next area here is area D, which I've had come in here in the light green. As we talked about, there is a huge Duke power line that runs diagonally from the northwest to the southeast across this property. And in both corners, the northeast corner over toward this side of the map and the northwest corner, we have areas that are common open space areas that would likely have stormwater and landscape buffering in them. We have, as John Paul showed, an entrance that's pretty much here aligned with proposed development on the north side of the street, and a 50-foot buffer around Mr. Fleming's entire nursery. And additional conversations that are outside the realm of what you all will do are conversations that have occurred in our office between like Mr. Fleming and then Mr. Wiesman on plant material. And you know, where Mr. Wiesman is going to get plant material, what kind of plant material is going to go in there, and how the two are going to work together to make sure that that buffer is a solid, impenetrable buffer. So when Mr. Fleming is running his nursery operation and irrigating plants, fertilizing plants, using pesticides, that those neighbors that live along that edge won't have a complaint. Moreover, people won't have the impetus to say, well, if I just jumped over that fence, I could get some of those plants and take them to my house. We wanted to make sure that that was a good, clean break there, and it allowed both the quality of life for Mr. Fleming that he's enjoyed as a business owner, as well as for those citizens and future neighbors of the city of Newberry. So that will be a 50-foot natural buffer around the entirety of Tropic Traditions Nursery. In this little corner here where I'm making this blue area, this is a 1-acre set-aside. We decided to put that there in the corner as opposed to the southwest corner because that gives Jim a little bit more buffer in that area. So that's a 204, 208 by 208 foot square that is a elevated water storage tower. That will improve the quality and quantity by improving the volume of water as well as the pressure in this portion of the city, and that is a donation that's being made as a part of this project. And so when you kind of decide where the things are on the outside, considering the buffer, considering set-asides on the east side, then you see the area where we have the residential area where homes would actually be built. And you can see here in the front, the areas that are illuminated now in the orange type color. These are the non-residential areas. And this equates to about 21 acres of land. So it is about a 10-to-1 ratio, 90% commercial, 90% residential and 10% commercial to support the residents as well as people that are traveling up and down Newberry Road or 202 on a daily basis. And then, of course, the right-of-way that forms the central core of the transportation and roadway and sidewalk system is illustrated in gray. Phase 1 would be on the western side, which would bring in the stormwater basins that would support that, as well as other phases. Phase 2 is the far western portion of the rectangle. Phase 3 is kind of in the core, and that, at that point, introduces the second component of commercial land use. When the first component is introduced in phase one, that's about the size and scale of a small, what I would consider like a tower square type area. You might get a daycare center, coffee shop, maybe a small restaurant in that triangular C-shaped area. Over on the east side, that is more of a complete shopping center that could be anchored by a national grocer tenant with other professional offices and other businesses in that area. And then finally, phase four. If we have a condition in the development, if we get to phase four early, that is the time where actual modifications would be done to 202 on the east side of the project. Full access will be directly from Newberry Road here. That means full access with east and west turning movements, because that is where the alignment is of the median break. And then there would be limited access in the form of a right turn in and a right turn out closer to 202, which we feel at some time far into the future is probably a candidate for a traffic signal. And then we have removed access along the western side of the property because that is a private road that is coming down on the west side of Tropic Tradition, so we're not proposing a driveway out of the property or a road out of the property, and we are not proposing anything along the south side to connect into those rural agricultural properties. Access is proposed on the east side, so at which time the commercial development or the mixture of uses occurs over on this portion of the development here, a roadway will connect to 202 to provide people an access to that, as opposed to someone coming up from the south and having to go out to Newberry Road to turn back in to the development. They can turn in, shop, go to a doctor, dentist, any sort of appointment, and then get right back on 202 and head south again. The amenity center, which is a component of this project has a trail system that's designed around all the stormwater basins and throughout all the phases of the neighborhood. The amenity center is in phase one, so it is brought on early when the neighbors start moving in. It's not one of those things that's held off until phase 10 or 11, in the future, so people aren't waiting to have fun and have, a spot to have birthday parties and recreation in the overall development. It's in phase one. So lastly, I'll cover a couple bits on this. As John Paul stated, all the dimensions in here are expressed as minimums. This is the common lot size that we are seeing in product throughout the community. And a week ago to tomorrow night, I was up in Lake City working on a subdivision up there on about 100 acres. And the same sort of size is happening in Columbia County to prevent people not having choices in the housing market. This is the size that makes home ownership really possible. It brings houses into our community, at a rate where first-time home buyers or empty nesters can purchase them. So we actually increased the minimum lot size before. In the original plan, it was 40 feet. Now they are all 50 feet. We have reduced the overall number of homes in the development from 750 to 636. We have added an attached unit standard here so that if down the road we get to a point where people want to have townhomes or an attached triplex or quadplex or some sort of brownstone two-story project, we can have an attached product in there. The minimum lot width on that would be 40, and if you had, by example, a 24 or 32 foot wide unit, you might have a grouping or a residential structure that might be 100 feet wide with 4 two-story type units in it. And then lastly, we increased the floor area ratio because we are having an overall master stormwater management system in here. And so that gives us the ability to have a little bit more square footage in commercial than if it was floating or flying under its own stormwater system. This will have a master system that's designed for the entirety of the development. And we've increased the common open space area from 10% up to 15%. So 15% of the land will be maintained in common for the recreation and utility and landscaping of the overall project. And lastly, through our work with the City of Newberry staff, we've added the dedication of a new municipal water tower in the northwestern corner of that notch there behind Tropic Traditions. So the action before you tonight, as expressed by your staff, is to recommend the City Commission approve LDR 2216, which is now 2237. I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have. I know sometimes you all want to shoot some questions directly to Gary or Andrew there. I guarantee they'll be animated if they're from Andrew, right? Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. John Paul, did you have a presentation? Beyond the overview?
No, I did withhold staff's recommendation to the appropriate time in the quasi-judicial public hearing. Staff does recommend approval of this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Okay, public comment. Any members of the public who are here to speak to this agenda item, you have the opportunity to do so now. Just come on down, make a queue, tell us your name, and you got 3 minutes. We'll put 3 minutes on the clock back there. And that little,
This may
I'm
go
not,
for this one and the next one as well. Muriel Gravely Turner, and just want to say that, once again, first I'll say that thank you that, 218 has been realized that that's a private road. But at the same time, it does not appear to be much, consideration given to the ability for somebody to walk and or drive and get out on that and make use of it. And we know that's happened in other places. So some type of fencing, something that can do as well as along the south border to make it, that we don't cross, because yes, we're inside whatever it is supposed to be, maybe for more commercial and more housing than agriculture, but we're still got agriculture in the back part of that property at this point in time. The water tower, I'm not sure that that's the best place. Again, probably, trespassing a little bit on what's developing next to it to have that right there in the front door. Some places maybe in the, future. Want to make sure that these people, I don't totally understand, but the homeowners association and or the realtors or whoever is selling to these people to make sure that right now we do have agricultural stuff that is close by, can be fires, can be spray, can be smell, odor, that type of stuff. And we're getting, even, I live a half a mile off of 26, and we still are having shakes from the mines, so that needs to be kept. But how you include and make sure that these people are purchasing a piece of property that they're not going to come back and harass somebody about later. And with that, to upkeep, who does the upkeep on the community areas and those areas that they're talking down the power line in the future once everything is done. We need to remember that for the people who are purchasing. We also need a couple, there's some low places on the back part of that property where water crosses the property line. So I think that needs to be addressed to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future once it's built out and there's more water coming instead of just agricultural uses. And the lot size and preferably none of the multi-family housing. I think we need to think about having the standalone homes that are doing that. And settlement ponds, I'm sorry, but I don't think they're really appropriate on the main highway as we go by, although there's a whole lot of developments that are that way. But right now, again, we've got a lot of cars on 202, and we're looking like this is going to be a whole lot more. And so I think we need to give some consideration as to what we're doing. But the main thing, again, is to remember that there's agricultural there right there, and those needs need to be served as well as those of people who are moving in.
thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Hang on 1 second. Let's finish up public comment, then you can bring her back up. Other members of the public, come on down.
I'm Donna Robertson. I live about 3/4 miles down from this area on 202, on Southwest 202. And my biggest concern is if they're going to have an ingress, egress right there on 202. We have a church, we have the corn maze, we have the lime rock trucks coming in that area right there trying to cross. There's also Granville now that, they have functions with 50 cars going up and down 202 to get back in there. And I'm right in front of Granville, so I see all that going on. That's my biggest concern is I really don't know how 202, when they do, and I don't know how long this is going to be before you open that up, how it's going to handle all the traffic coming in and out right there. So that's my biggest concern because It is agriculture, and it's wonderful to be able to go out on and walk 202. It's a quiet little, with a canopy tree, and I look at how they did Dusty Trail. They still kept that as a canopy, and that would be nice if somehow we could still leave some of the trees
Okay.
to keep that. The reason I moved out there was for the country
Beautiful
life,
road.
not the city life. That's why I ran away from where I was, so. But that's what I would love for y'all to consider, just trying to keep it as much as you can safe for the kids that do get out there on the bikes, that get on 202, and then dealing with that intersection. And when the corn maze is going, you have all those teenagers coming through there, and half of them really don't know how to get through there as it is. It's so congested. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment? Come on down, sir.
Jim Fleming, owner of Tropic Traditions. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the engineers and Mr. Wiesman for putting in that buffer zone. I do think it's necessary there. I would like to say what I'm going to propose there, hopefully they're going to agree with me, is a solid green wall. And it's a particular species of plant that I'm very familiar with. I use it in screenings at my other farms, and I think it would be wonderful for both the nursery and for the neighborhood going in. That being said, I think that same species of plant material should be planted along 218th Street to address the concerns of Merle Jean and the other agricultural interest in the area. When the time is right, I'll do a presentation. I'll bring pictures and show you guys what I'm talking about here. But it doesn't take long for this plant to occur. It takes several years, but once it's in, it's a solid green wall, and it's very beautiful, and it's very low maintenance. So,
I got a couple neighbors I need to block off too, so I'll find out. All right, thank you, sir. Was that it?
Yeah,
So you
that's
still
it.
got a minute 50, so you can just tell us how the
well,
day's
the
going,
only
you
other
know?
thing is, just like Merle Jean said, if I had my druthers, I'd say, detached family homes instead of attached, because attached is, higher density, and, already it's crowded around here. But, development is inevitable. These guys do a great job putting together, laying out a nice community. I know people that work for their firm, and I'm hopeful it's going to look really good. So.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Other public comments? You went to all that trouble of swearing in. Might as well have something to say.
I didn't get sworn in because I didn't think I was gonna say anything, so you can swear me in.
That's why I always tell people, just stand up and swear in right then. Madam Clerk, would you swear this young lady in for us?
Please state your name for the record.
Marina Rojas.
Do you hereby swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
The comment I want to make is
Can you
that.
step up? We're trying to get it into the
Okay.
record for folks watching.
Comment I'd like to make is that we have a homestead that will face that tower. We will look out our front door. It's the home that my mom and dad built back in the 50s, and we were raised out there. And they told us when we were little kids, when you grow up, all that land there with the pine trees that's gonna be Gainesville coming into Newberry. And you're gonna have houses there. And we said, we hope not. It's here and it's fine. These are good builders. I've seen Mr. Wiesman's work, so it's not cheap stuff. It's nice. So it's nice to know that that's coming. My issue is that water tower. That's gonna be an ugly thing for us to look at. And if we ever decide we want to sell, I don't think that would be a very nice thing for someone to want to look at in order to sell. So that's all I'd like to say. Reconsider that water tower, make it a little bit more nicer, or put it somewhere else where we don't have to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment? Seeing none, we're gonna move to, do you have anything you want to cross-examine?
I don't want to cross-examine, but I want to answer questions.
Okay, hang on one second. Staff, did you have anything you want to cross-examine? Mr. New?
Well,
The planning staff may have some cross-examination I have
shook
one
their head
question
no.
as well. I have one question as well, when it's the appropriate time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Members of the decision-making body, let's go ahead and ask our questions, and if you want to let staff ask their questions. Mike, why don't you go ahead and start us off while they're getting fixated down there? You had a question that you wanted to ask.
Yes, Ms. Robinson had a reference to Dusty Trail. If I could get the, what 911 calls that street, we'd go out and research it and try to. 15th Street.
Once it goes over 241 north, when you go west.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know
I'm
where it
sorry, east, that's the old Dusty Trail. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
All right.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, Commission, do you have any questions you want to ask of the applicant or staff or any of the participants? You had a question for one of the participants.
Yes, is it appropriate to
Hey, we're in questions now, yep. Go right
My
ahead.
one question was to Ms. Gravely was, when I walked in, there was a question about some flooding. So could we address that real quick? Because Mr. Weisman has been very gracious in this whole process and has changed a lot on this master plan. So, I mean, before we get it straight, I'd like to know what we're talking about on the flooding.
It does not happen all the time, but when we have heavy rains on the south side of that property, I guess it'd be the southeast part of it, there is a low spot in that area.
Is it on Mr. Weisman's land or does it come over to your land?
It's on Mr. Weisman's, and it will come over on our land and
Okay.
on that, the Hodge Drive down to Granville.
Okay.
It will come over there, in the
I
hay
think I know
field.
where you're talking about, actually.
But
Comes
it's
over
right
there
there in a
road.
low spot, and it's just once you get paving in there, I'm sure it's gonna probably increase some of that.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Commission have any other questions for the applicant or staff?
I got a couple before we, and this will be just for, I'm sure Mr. Diegenbach or Mr. Weisman or any can answer. It is on the maintenance of the whole green space. It'll be maintained by Mr. Weisman's crew or to a HOA? So the whole place has an HOA?
Let, Mr. Weisman, can you come up, because we got people watching at home and we need to make sure that's in
I
the
mean, that's-
record.
If you want to ask them all, I'm just taking them and putting a box and we'll ask.
And then you'll come up and answer? Okay, so go ahead
Okay,
and
so is there
answer.
an HOA on the whole development? If not, is there some sort of HO maintaining? Because I know some of the subdivisions that come to Newberry, they got beautiful homes, they got stuff, there ain't no HOA. Now you go to the entrance, ain't nobody maintaining nothing. So I'm not a big HOA guy, but there has to be something to maintain the fronts and stuff of this place. So, and I know, I've seen a lot of Mr. Weisman's stuff, so I know Gary well. And, yeah, I think the flooding concern will get addressed, through Gary and the engineering when they put these roads in. I think all that flooding will go away. Gary, you hear me? The flooding part, I think it'll go away once y'all engineer this and do all your site work. I think all that'll go away. And if possible, my question is to address the water tower. I know this is a big place. We actually had the water tower on the east side, on the southeast side one time, and now it's back up here. But that was just a thought and a thought process when we were talking a long time ago. Could that be moved around? If between this, everybody, and ain't got to be answered right this minute, we got time to.
Mr. Deba, why don't you go through,
Massage
let's
this.
do the other questions first, and then we'll come to the water tower, because I think the water tower is a bigger answer. So if you'll come up and answer it for the record, the HOA, the flooding issues, those kind of things.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to do the citizens one as well?
You can answer all Commissioner Clark's questions first.
Okay,
and we'll
perfect.
Make sure we have those done first.
So Commissioner Clark, through the chair, we'll probably have two different types of organizations in there. There will probably be a homeowners association that will maintain common open space areas and landscaping areas in the residential portion. In the commercial portion, you're likely to have a commercial management agency or a CMA, so that or common area maintenance is under a CAM. So if a person is running a dentist's office or a lawyer's office, they will have something that goes in there, so it's under a unified maintenance standard. As for the flooding issue, I'm glad you asked that one, and I'm glad Ms. Bradley Turner asked this one too. So the Water Management District rules, under which this will be permitted, state that post-development cannot exceed pre-development. And so, as you develop and add rooftops, sidewalks, roads, and impervious area, you cannot flow more water off the site than is originally going off the site. In addition, you have to accept all off-site water that's coming through the property and not exacerbate or increase that. So what we'll do through our permitting of the Water Management District is we will attempt to detain and retain on-site, and anything that's coming off there will be part of our drainage studies permitted through the Swanee River Water Management District to ensure that we are not off-flowing on the property onto others. And I think you alleviated me from having to talk about Jamie's handsome water tower. Some of that is, of course.
We'll deal with the water tower here in a second.
So that answers that, and I figured that honestly
sir.
in that part. I thought that would take it. But the HOA is part of this association.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then I think one of the questions that I'd like, I understand the suggestion about the green tower, I think that's nice, but I think at least the fence just to keep people from going out. Do we have something already in the plan to keep people from this one going out on, 218? 218? 218.
Yeah.
Is there a fence there?
So good.
Will there be a fence there?
Good question. So we had originally placed, as you saw, a roadway that would go out to 218, but since that's private, we're not going to do a roadway out to that direction. This is the beauty of getting everyone in the room at the same time. And when I just asked Mr. Wiesman, would you rather fence that? He and Jim just talked and said, well, maybe what we would do is run Mr. Fleming's tall green plants down that west side. We want to try to, fences look horrible after a while. And who maintains them, and is it on this property line or that property line, is not the best choice. So I think what we'd like to do is look at an option that would offer some sort of an ability to place a green, vegetative line down there. He has a favorite plant. I think we all know.
I can show you a
Yeah.
picture.
I think all
Yeah.
we need to know is just remind the staff that when we go to make the motion, let's put that in
Include
the
something
motion,
like
that
that in
we
there.
agree that there will be some obstruction there, and then you guys can figure out the most attractive way to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. I doubt people will trespass through someone's yard to get to 218 because there will be lots against that western edge.
Okay. Did you have another citizen question that you wanted to address before we get to the water
Well, I just
tower
wanted to make
issue?
sure that I didn't miss any. Water tower, best place. I'm going through Ms. Bradley Turner's. Keep the community areas up with an HOA. Make sure no water's crossing the property line. Make sure the settlement ponds on the main highway are, she didn't like those, but you all have landscaping standards for those ponds now that are different than the ones of days of old. Ms. Robertson talked about how long would it be before there would be access on 202, and since that's the fourth phase, I really see that out there about 15 to 17 to 20 to 22 years out there. It's a ways. I mean, there's a lot of home ownership that has to happen before we get to phase 4. So, 15, 20 years out in the future. Keep the canopy street. We agree with that too. And one of the things that we had talked about between myself and Mike and Brian and John Paul is if we could find any sort of grants that the city might be eligible for, like through Arbor Day Foundation or something like that, knowing that we are preserving land along that eastern side and going to dedicate right away in the future, we could start planting trees earlier. So that by the time it needs improvement, those trees would have a good, healthy 10 to 15 year start on that. So we're in alignment on that. Mr. Fleming's comments were thank you, and he has a recommended species. Ms. Ray has said that she has homesteaded property and will face the tower. It's an ugly thing. That's for Jamie to address. And then, that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Martin.
I wrote two other things that Ms. Turner had asked about as well. How are we going to actively and proactively, I don't know if alert is the right word, but make clear about odors and or mining concussion?
Great question. So the question is how notification would be given through residents, and we had talked about there's like a 3-phase approach. Number 1 approach is when people come in and look at the property. If you're touring with a real estate agent and you're going to live in phase one somewhere, you'll be advised that you live proximate to an active commercial nursery. Number two is placement of that into the contract. So when you're signing your contract to purchase a lot, it is clearly there in the contract that says, I acknowledge that I am living next to a nursery that will have long-term, operations in this community, and I cannot come back and complain about that. And then number three is in the covenants for the neighborhood, that it will be annotated on there that your property abuts or is closely adjacent to the active nursery. Now, if somebody moves into phase four over on the far east side, they wouldn't get that notification, but that notification would be given to people that live in phase one and phase two.
I think her note is potentially well received on this dais to keep the minimum of the phone calls, but we not only incorporate the tropic traditions aspect of it, but also any potential ag odors.
Certainly.
As part of the list, I guess.
As part of the list of notifications?
Yeah.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Who owns the commercial property?
Well, today, Mr. Wiesman owns it all.
Okay. So there's different phases for the residential property. What is the phase for construction in the commercial?
The first phase, and I can back up in the colors here, I think it helps explain it a little bit. Yeah, the first phase, phase one, has some commercial that comes in as that little orange triangle with the C up at the top.
Okay.
And then the balance of the commercial doesn't come on until in phase 3 and 4. I don't believe that we've made a decision at this point in time whether, Mr. Wiesman would sell property fee simple to somebody wanting to open, let's say, a law office or an orthodontist office, or if he would do ground leases on the property. That decision hasn't been made at this point in time.
I was thinking, I guess I was wondering about the Hoffman property. I guess that's what I was really, so that's not part of this.
It is not.
Okay.
It is, Mr. Mayor, it is that white notch there along State Road 26.
But there's no commercial too, correct?
It has commercial intensive land use on it, I believe. Commercial intensive zoning.
I believe wonderful opportunity to partner in the future.
Yeah.
The other question is, there's no access to the property behind this property, as far as the roadway is concerned. Now, I understand right now it's on commercial, it's on agriculture, but in the future, someone could come in and decide to develop that into residential, and I think there should be a access to that property somewhere along the line.
Okay.
Is that Commissioner Farnsworth? Yeah. Other questions from the dais?
I do.
Commissioner Coleman?
On this, so the road going over to 202, it'll be, you're not even gonna build that road right now, is that correct?
That is correct. The road over to 202 will not come in through until phase 3 and phase 4.
Okay, Commissioner Martin?
Two other things, Jerry. The 636 detached and attached single family, do we know the breakdown or the anticipated breakdown between the two?
No, we don't at this point in time. It would not affect the density because the cap is the cap. If you end up coming in and building some townhomes or attached product, what would happen is the open space area would increase because you'd be consuming less land associated with the residential units.
Then, which is a perfect segue to my other question. The open space of you had mentioned how it goes from 10 to 15. Does that include the Duke easement at all?
It does include the Duke easement in there, yes.
It does? Okay.
Yes.
Mike or Jerry, if we have the two entrances and exits onto 26, does that confine or constrain the Hoffmans for being able to have, and I know that you can only have so many help me with the scale here. They can still get direct access, or are they gonna have to come in off of one of those roads to access there? Plenty of frontage, there's gonna have to go kind of right in the middle, is it gonna, cause the FDOT's not gonna let them put a western, there may be enough room on the eastern?
If I were to look, Mr. Mayor, into a crystal ball, I would say that the access to the Hoffman piece and, let me back up to the aerial, I think it might tell the story a little bit clearer. The access to Hoffman, and I will only butcher this if I try to say it, Ranji LLC would probably be right in and right out access only. FDOT will not allow for an additional median cut for full access. So those properties are probably destined to be right in and right out only if they seek their own entrances, which I trust they may. And so when you look at ours, you can see the proximity of this western entrance where we call it the full access. It runs right down the side of the Hoffman piece, and that's designed so that there could be common access there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no,
There is a median break at that point where it says full access, so you could turn left, right, east, west there.
but their median break.
They don't have one.
Much prohibit the Hoffmans from getting a median break. So, but you're willing to allow the Hoffman, whatever goes there, to use that same entranceway. That's not gonna be an
That is
issue.
put right there for a specific reason, so that it also aligns with the development proposal to the north. That's where FDOT would allow it. They will allow no additional median cuts in that short distance to 202.
Okay, and we're good with that? That's fair. All right, any other questions?
I have one more.
Commissioner, hang on, Commissioner Maison and then
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I'll ask the obvious. Do we know how many kids that we're
Six.
per house?
No, hopefully not. Mr. Mayor, no, we don't have a projection of the number of children in the house. You know, these are generally first-time home buyers or empty nesters, so the empty nesters probably have 0, whereas the first-time home buyers are starting in that climbing number from 1, 2, and I don't think I want any more of these.
The school board does have a formula. Brian, do you
Correct.
remember that formula off the top of your head for every house? It's like, you know it? You know it? It's like 0.2 or something.
It's in the staff report.
It's, for a detached house, it's like 1.1 kids, and for an attached, it's like 0.78 kids. And it actually is different for elementary school, middle school, and high school.
Yeah.
Hang on, Commissioner Clark, and then we'll come back to Commissioner
Oh,
Martin.
go ahead.
Commissioner
Finish
Martin.
up.
Yeah, there's currently not a median break there on 26, right there.
Yes.
Yes, there's, Mr. Chair, there is a full access median cut right there at that point.
I drive it, I'm looking at it right here on the map. There is not one there. 218's down there.
218 there is, 202.
Yes, but in the middle, there is not
I
one.
thought you were suggesting you were gonna put one in.
That's correct.
They're gonna
That-
install it
yeah.
immediately.
Because that's, Mr. Chair, that's right about the midpoint between 218 and 202. So no other ones would be granted on either side.
So there's currently not one there, but DOT will,
They'll allow one as long as we are working in coordination with other properties, such as across the street. So we've tried to align those so that they could have a common north-south alignment, Mr. Chair.
Is that a line, is DCC right there?
Yeah,
it's the
DCC.
western exit for DCC.
Yeah, DCC is right about underneath where the, like, the full word is right here,
This is
so it'd be
the exit.
fairly close.
So they'll be able to
Yeah.
turn in there.
There's only an out there on the DCC side,
But
but
when
what it
they-
does do,
when they cut
when
in,
they cut
yeah,
out, when they
that's what I'm
leave
saying.
DCC, they can make a left there and go
Right,
east, instead
And
of
in-
going all the way down to 218 and turn around.
Yeah.
right.
And in the SAP property, you've seen preliminary pictures of that during your corridor. The SAP property roadway is designed to come right down to that same point, so it may be beneficial for DCC to get on an entry road for SAP. You know what I'm saying? So it's in perfect north-south alignment.
Hang
Yeah.
on a second. Okay, any other questions about this before we tackle the water tower? Commissioner Clark?
One more.
And then I'll come
Yes,
back.
sir.
So, I love the upgrading of the lot widths. Will this have any stages of, if we're doing the single family attached or duplexes? Is there any room is this subdivision gonna have anything in the 1,500 square foot to 3,000 square foot, or is these all gonna be the same homes? Are we gonna have bigger ones in one area, no bigger ones? Is it gonna be just pretty much the same all the way through? In this development, I just didn't know if we had plans for that.
Gary, you're gonna have to come to the mic to.
I wanna hear the grandson talk about the vision. He's gonna be finishing this out.
Well, I hear empty nesters out here, I'm just,
But I thought it was small.
people wanna come to Newberry, got money too.
4,000 square foot homes.
I think that's the question. What, is there gonna be a diversity of
think-
offerings?
Gary Weisman, owner of the property. We do not know what will happen. We will kind of have to wait and see what the market bears, but we would expect that it's probably nothing smaller than 1,500 square feet to 2,000 is probably going to be the target size. And if we decide to have a street where the market thinks we should have something a little bit bigger, probably will, but don't anticipate any big.
But different sizes, different monies throughout, so that's, if the market bears it, you build it.
That's what we're going to shoot for.
Got it.
Let me answer a couple more questions. When we did Newberry Oaks, which y'all are familiar with, the city accepted all those retention ponds and everything, and they maintained them, but I don't believe the city doesn't accept them anymore. That's why we will have to form a HOA to maintain the retention ponds. That'll be the difference between that and Newberry Oaks, which probably everybody's familiar with. And I want the Turner family and all the Gravely family to fully understand that we know there'll be ag to the south. And at 218, we're pretty much going to have solid lots along that, which will, most people fence their backyard, but even if you don't, you're not going to run across somebody's property and jump. There's a little existing fence there to keep the cows in, so we're going to have that isolated, and that'll either work, or we'll get with Tropic Traditions if we get to phase 2 and decide whether the lots with their own backyard works, or if we need to plant a hedge of bamboo or something else, then we'll figure that out by phase 2. And I suspect everybody's agreed that we're probably gonna do a lot disclosure. Do y'all familiar and remember what we did in Newberry Oaks? We did a lot disclosure that said there was commercial land on the highway. I think it said there was Canterbury there. It said there was a mining operation to the north, and everybody signed that lot disclosure, and it's supposed to be handed down to the future property owner. So we could do a lot disclosure there, which states that, number one, there's a mine, whatever it is, a mile away. We can have in the lot disclosure that there's a nursery bordering there that is an active nursery operation, and we can also have in the lot disclosure that there's agriculture to the south that will have pesticides and fertilizers and whatever the ag does, so we can have a lot disclosure that we could make the people sign. And when we did Newberry Oaks, we were redundant in that. We made them sign it when they signed the contract. We made them sign it again when they did the closing. So nobody can come back later. When we got through with Newberry Oaks, I gave a big old fat folder to Brian Thomas and said, here's all your lot disclosures, put them away somewhere in case anybody ever comes back to you. So anyway, that's what we did with that. Anybody got any other questions for?
Any questions?
That's good for me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I got
Maison.
a question. But it's for him. Hey, do you guys burn? What's that? Do you guys burn? What? Burn. Do you burn anything? Smoke?
Burn?
Yeah.
Yeah, occasionally we do burn our branches and stuff in the nursery. We get a permit through the forestry department. We have a centrally located burn pit in the nursery where we burn our branches and whatnot from the nursery.
How bad does that smoke get?
It does, it just, we try to burn when there's not too much wind. They won't issue a permit when there's too much wind, but yeah, the smoke does go around. So smoke could be something somebody could complain about, for sure.
So as of right now, do you notify the that nursery preschool when you're burning or not?
Yeah, as a courtesy, yes, we do. Yeah, but we don't really burn when the wind's gonna blow that way, because there's small children there. So we're real, we do it when it's appropriate to do it. and then we call, the forestry department and get a permit. You have to get a permit in order to burn, Commissioner. So, yeah, we do, talk to our neighbors and stuff. But the reason why I wanted to ask is, I noticed that there's a big green area right in the center of the plan there. I guess that's a common area or something. What about putting the water tower there? Right in the middle.
Hang on, Mr. Fleming, hang on one second. We're gonna get to the water tower. It's a great idea, but we're gonna get to the water tower. We're still held up, let you off.
Well, and getting back to the 218th Street, what I think, I can show you guys a picture. One of the next meetings that come up, I'll have better pictures. I can show the commission. But what I'm proposing, it's a bamboo species called wongchuk. It grows vertically. It grows straight up and down. It's non-invasive. It is non-invasive. It grows straight up, and it provides a wall, a green wall. It does get very tall, in the right environment. So, it's gonna just be absolutely gorgeous. And if we could extend that around the nursery and down 218th Street, that would pretty much, put a green wall in between all that, and it would look beautiful.
Well, I like it, and that's something for you guys to work out a little bit later. All right, sir, we appreciate you. I'm gonna move to
No other question?
final arguments. Anybody would like to make a final argument? No? Jerry? John Paul, would you like to make a final argument? No? Now, you're up, you're down, I don't know. Hey, you don't have to. You don't have to. Not trying to pressure you.
I didn't have any closing remarks or rebuttals to Jerry's addressing questions from the commission and staff. I am available, and city staff's available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, well now, see, I had to call everybody off the water tower so many times, I almost forgot the water tower conversation, so. Commissioner Clark mentioned when this project was first proposed, the water tower was, east. I can't remember if it was northeast or southeast, but it was east.
I'm not sure if it was proposed, Mr. Mayor, we had talked about it, and it's sitting right here.
Mike, you didn't swear in. You didn't swear in either? I tell you what.
Come on, Mike.
I've just lost control of this chamber. I can't get anybody to swear in tonight.
Mike New.
Do you hereby swear affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm city manager, and I've been duly sworn.
Okay, so tell us, I know that in the applicant's presentation, it got moved there to create a greater buffer. Was it just to create a greater buffer, or is there engineering reasons why it's there? Can we move it somewhere else?
Mr. Mayor, there generally are topographic issues. We seek the higher ground to put these storage tanks on, because the water level has to be what it has to be to make your system work hydraulically, your water system. So the higher ground you start with, the less legs you have to build to get it there. And so as a rule of thumb, we're looking for higher ground. But this particular site, and actually this part of the city of Newberry, there's not a 10-foot difference in elevation for a long way. So what really drove the selection, we had always kind of centered in on the eastern part of the parcel, kind of just east of the power lines. And I guess through conversation with the developer and some of the negotiation associated with the buffer, trying to get some efficiencies on the site, is how we ended up where we are. There's also a belief by staff that 218th, which is private today, it may be private forever, but it also may become a public road. It is a half-section line, which is a location where public roads tend to be. So current property owners, I don't think, have any intention of it being a public road, but subsequently down the road, it may become a public road, and that would be an opportunity for us with a straight shot to loop our water main right back out to the highway. I would say that just generally, though, so there's flexibility in where we move the water tower. I would just say that generally, we don't find that water towers have a negative property value. I'll give you an example. 2 blocks from here, we have a water tower, and I've not met a resident or a realtor that suggested that the property adjacent to the water tower or any property that could visibly see the water tower were seeing depressed property values. And I would remind the commission that the city's second water tower is located out at Easton. The commission approved 700 lots out there, and the first 2 phases of that subdivision were built right up against the water tower. So it's, 50, 75 feet away from a whole strip of homes. None of those home prices are selling for the same as the other home prices. Once you get the water tower erected and the rest of the infrastructure in the community, I've not heard anybody suggest or complain. I know when I worked in Gainesville, they were right in the middle of subdivisions. The biggest challenge when they're in a subdivision is occasionally you have to paint them, and painting a water tower in a really tight subdivision becomes a bit of a challenge. What's that? The developer will provide us with ingress and egress. We'll need paved road access. The ask is for an acre. If you go around and look at the legs on any of our water tanks, you don't need that kind of land just for the legs to be. You need that kind of land to bring equipment on site, to erect a tower, to do your maintenance activities. This is why we go for such a large site.
Commissioner Clark.
Mike, so I got you, and I hear what you're saying. I think what the people here are saying also, though, is what Easton was way back there in the back. They elected to build that subdivision. That water tower was already existing. This water tower is gonna come on board right in front of somebody that's been there for a lot of years. So that's kind of the gripe. So my question, just for negotiation.
Absolutely.
Could it be, Mr. Weisman sitting right here, could it be put in D? Could it be put, and I'm D, the green east side, west side D, not the right one. I know that's a retention pond. Correct? Is that
On Newberry Road.
on Newberry Road? You paint it green, welcome to Newberry, it's all right there. It comes in.
We would object to green, Mr. Mayor, respectfully. So, but we wouldn't site a water tower in a retention area. And anywhere we site a water tower is preceded by quite a bit of geographic soil testing. So there's, as you all know, there are geographic anomalies all over Newberry.
In that area.
And we know we're going to encounter them. We also know that if the engineer that's designing that elevated water tower is aware of them, that he will design his foundation in such a manner that we won't have any concerns about our water tower either falling or leaning. But we have flexibility.
Can I break in here, because we could be here all night talking about different
Absolutely.
spots. And what we should do, I think Commissioner Clark has identified the only salient point, right? If we put it to the east, then I buy my house, the water tower's already there, it's already going there. I know what I'm doing, right? Putting it there, now I'm imposing on people who were there first. So why don't we look for alternative sites on this property with that as a determining policy, and see if we can come back? Because what I don't want us to do is, without all of that geoteching and without knowing what we're talking about, we dictate where it's going to go here, and then they got to come back to say, well, that's right on top of a sinkhole, right? So if we can, let's see if we can move it away from the existing residents, put it somewhere else. But I'd like to leave them the flexibility of doing that on that guiding principle. Can we?
Already drew the water tower on the north side of the.
Did you paint it as a watermelon?
It's right there, so everybody can see it going back and forth.
I'm sorry, folks, Commissioner Coleman has already drawn it on the map, so we can't change anything now.
If we can get a copy of that, we'll go ahead and send that in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I want to go back to Commissioner Farnsworth comment, because we have
we have discussed here in these developments, how distressing it is that we approve these things, all of the houses get built out, and the commercial just sort of sits there forever. Is there anything, I know we got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Is there any stipulation that before you can move to phase 2, phase 1 has to be built out, including the commercial? Okay?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's not a stipulation that prohibits you from going there earlier. The only thing is, if you do go to, let's say, phase 3 or phase 4 earlier, you're bringing on the obligation of yourself to do 202. And
So as soon as you hit phase 3, you have to start worried about, that's what I thought you said, but
Yeah.
then you just said phase 3. So what triggers in phase 3 that doesn't trigger until phase 4? Phase 4 is 202. What triggers in phase 3?
Not much, but by that logic, over toward this side, you don't get a whole lot more. Let's say you pick up another 5 acres. If you were gonna do phase 3, which is the second entrance, you might as well just jump to phase 4 because you're gonna build a shopping center.
Okay. I mean, I hear the thought that you can't control commercial, but I also know that we can control what we prioritize and what we focus on and what we go after.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see us effort towards, before we build all these houses and nothing happens in commercial, that there's some trigger that forces our attention to shift onto that commercial. And I don't want to negotiate up here on the dais. I thought we were pretty clear about that desire before. So I guess the question becomes to staff, what happened that prohibited that piece of the puzzle from making it into the developer's agreement?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to put out there that the households in the neighborhood are going to be substantially the residents that frequent the businesses up front. And so by putting a limitation on when the remainder of the residential can be built based on how much of the commercial has gone in can be kind of counterintuitive, because a lot of the commercial is going to be dependent on all those households in the back to become more attractive for commercial development. So there is a clause in there, Jean-Paul reminded me, that if they don't have commercial built by phase 4, was it? That they either have to build it or they have to eliminate it. So.
Wait a minute.
And well, John Paul discussed that part of it.
Yeah.
But my point being that to a large extent, the households that are in the neighborhood are going to support the commercial that develops in the front.
I mean, I understand that point, and that's always been, if you get all those houses, that's gonna push for some commercial to get there. I get that, but I also know that there's things the developer can do, putting underground infrastructure in to make it more attractive for commercial development to be ready to go. But now I'm more concerned about this clause about elimination. So if there's no commercial by the time they get to phase 4, they get the option to eliminate the commercial?
Because this is a planned development, they would have to come in and amend that. So this would come back before the board if there was no intent, or say the market didn't have the commercial square footage to absorb, and have to come back before the board to amend that master plan, and that's part of the requirement of the development order.
Does the developer have to put in the underground infrastructure in the commercial to incentivize it, or is it just an empty spot of ground and you're looking for a commercial development to come in and they have to hook into the water and sewer and they have to build all the roads on that site? I mean, what is the developer's, because I know of our own development around here, when the developer puts in the road and has the water and sewer hookups right there, that becomes a pretty good incentive for a restaurant to come in or something to come in and just be able to build their structure and hook up.
Yeah, on the actual commercial sites, and Jerry or Gary can correct me on this, but they'll be stubbing at the property line for the commercial property, so it'll be available for them to connect. But I don't believe that they'll be doing any site work on the commercial sites until they have, somebody that's ready to move in to do that actual construction.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry.
It would obviously be to our benefit that if something comes along in 10 or 15 years that really wants that parcel, that we would go ahead and run the services to it, because that would not only benefit me, but benefit the city of Newberry. So, and just in a selfish way, I would obviously want to run water and sewer and all the services, even if we were still building in phase 2 or 3, to the commercial if somebody came up desiring to do something with that parcel. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just, we just keep getting into this kind of a rut, where we build something with the promise of all this commercial, we get all the houses, and then the commercial just sits there. And this isn't fair to have this conversation now. Is why we were trying to have the conversation, letting y'all figure this out behind the scenes. But, and I don't know that maybe there's just not an answer to it. So, I guess it's back to the board.
Well, the commercial will be developed when the demand is there, and y'all want the commercial to be available to where when the demand comes, whether it's in this piece, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, you want that to be available, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we want to get it commercial, and then if something comes there, then, it'll be to my monetary interest to get the services up there to where we can lease or sell some or all of that parcel.
Okay.
Could happen tomorrow. I mean, if somebody calls tomorrow and says they want to do something there, then from phase 1, it's going to cost us a lot of money to get the services there, but we'll do whatever we got to do to make it happen.
All right, Commissioner Coleman's been waiting.
Well, and I agree with it. I think it's teetering on, private property rights anyway. I mean, it's on commercial, we're waiting on it. It's there for the taking if somebody comes in. I don't think that we should be mandating, we are already mandating that we want a commercial up front. I think all of us on the board did. But we can't slow up his project because commercial hadn't came yet. I believe you build it, they're gonna come, especially on Newberry Road.
I mean, I tend to agree with that. I don't want to ignore that this same board had this conversation. And so that's why I'm going, I think on Newberry Road, you build all those houses, that's the incentive for the commercial to get there.
Right.
But you guys also have been very clear about this point, especially along that corridor, of making sure that there are some sticks and carrots along the way to make sure that happens. So didn't happen this time, and maybe it's just because there really is no way to put it down in writing. So that does it for my questions. You got anybody, Commissioner Farnsworth?
I'll make a statement.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
Done with me?
Yes, sir. Okay, my thought process is, you could build commercial and then it'd be there to lease out. I think of the Country Square out there, and they built the commercial property before they even started building homes in there, if I remember correctly. So I don't actually believe that you have to have houses behind this property before you can actually develop the commercial part of it. So the way it stands now and the way the agreement is between the plan that they have now, I can't support it.
Okay, we went to final arguments, then we went back to the water tower. We were agreed on that point. Any other comments before I ask the city attorney to advise his make body, Commissioner Barton?
Yeah, this texture of the conversation seems more appropriate when we're looking at development anyway. We're only talking about rezoning here. If I'm right. So that sounds more like a development agreement sort of discussion anyway.
Okay. But that is what we're voting on, the zoning to a PD. So to get it, it would have to be part of this. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to make 2 points to provide some clarity to the board about at least what was going on with staff, and I'll do them in reverse order. To Commissioner Farnsworth's thoughts about Countryway Town Center. You're exactly correct. They started the commercial development earlier in that project. Our understanding, though, is the real driver there was the CDBG grant that they received that requires them to begin certain activities in order to get the grant funding. Not saying that they wouldn't have done it otherwise had they not received the funding, but it was a real driver in that development. And if this property were to get a CDBG fund that creates jobs, CDBG funding on infrastructure that creates jobs, they would have to bring it on within time certain, or they have to repay it. So speaking to, maybe a difference at Countryway Town Center. The second issue is kind of to the mayor's issue about when the staff heard the commission say you got to bring it online in a timely, the commercial's got to come online before you build out all the residential. So I recall a very robust discussion with the engineering firm, CHW, and the developer in the room having that conversation. And I would say that, we were talking about, does that have to be 50% of the homes approved before development is required to be online, or 75%, because it's broken into 4 phases. And your city manager just became convinced that of the two, that the developer made a compelling argument that you need that ability to have 75% of the homes at some point of construction before you generate the interest up front. So if we let the commission down in our understanding, that's why I was persuaded. I think we as a negotiating team were persuaded. But if the commission prefers it to go to 50%, then we can regroup with this development, and we can certainly know where we stand with future developments.
So there is a trigger at 75% of the residential, they've got to bring some commercial online? Is that what you just?
Yeah, in the development order, if I'm correct, after phase 3, they have to start commercial development by the end of phase 3. They can't start residential development in phase 4 without getting the commercial going up front. And and I say nominally, that's 75% of the homes we're complete with the phase that gets you to 75% of the home. Commercial development has to start. You can't pull another CO in phase 4 until the commercial development is underway.
I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with the conversation of, hey, we hashed it around a table, and we could never come to a percentage that made any sense legally or financially, right? Just knowing that we tried to effort towards that way, but now we know 75%, they got to get some commercial going. I think that's a pretty good compromise.
Thank you.
Okay, so hang on one second. We have public comment in just a minute. We've done final arguments. Mr. Attorney, will you advise the decision-making bodies applicable law and factual findings must be met?
Sir, substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll enter deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve, and we can put on the floor for further discussion.
Okay, and in that motion, there's some sort of fencing barrier along to 18, and there's a flexibility of moving the water tower away from the existing site at the discretion of the applicant and staffs.
My motion is to incorporate the discussion points that we've had tonight. I think we can communicate those pretty easily.
Okay, and that's your second, Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
All right, so Commissioner Martin made the motion, Commissioner Molden made the second. Coleman. All right. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Okay, so if they develop phase 1, 2, and 3, and decide at that point they don't want to develop phase 4, or any of the commercial property, they're allowed to do that?
I think it could stagnate, but Commissioner Martin?
I guess that's theoretically possible. Yes, I guess it's theoretically possible. I would personally interpret that anecdotally as almost impossible, but
I don't know, it's financially possible.
Well,
I mean, I think there's still, you know, when you're in a business, the profit doesn't come sometimes until the very, very end.
yeah, but
And
the
I mean,
profit,
the scope and how the lots are laid out and the pricing and everything is built on a full freight, not three-quarters of it. But your point's well taken. I think it is possible, and they could lose money on the project if they wanted to. That's certainly their prerogative to do so.
for the profit for the city is in the commercial property, not in the residential property. So, I think it's imperative that we work towards more commercial property and instead of building more and more houses without.
I mean, I'd be interested to hear the
Commercial
answer,
property.
because they went from 750 to 634. So I think they need all 634 to make this project work over the grand scope of it. But you tell us.
Yeah, and if I stepped up because I wanted to make sure I was hearing the conversation correctly, and what I'm hearing is that there is a desire to get the commercial faster. And I think the one question that I would ask Gary, having done Grand Oaks, which is the subdivision that goes from effectively Oak Hall School on Tower Road, all the way east, 157 acres, all the way east to 24th Avenue. And I guess the question I have. Thank you.
And turn that hair
You know, Gary, if you could have kept more commercial and accelerated the commercial, would you have done it?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because if the market's there, he would run at it. But you all earlier were kind of like a little bit, then a little bit, a little bit, then a little bit. If you want to open up the doors on the commercial and, you know, a site selector's out there and he's looking, he's like, I'm going to have 630 some houses behind here. I'm coming tomorrow, or I'm coming, you know, in 2024 when these roads start being developed. I don't think there's any throttle that he would want to have. If you're okay with letting the commercial on earlier, let him have that land right and bring it to town, because there are people here that would utilize it.
And I don't think that the coming on earlier is the issue, right? What I have noticed is that houses sell like that, right? Houses sell all day long, and often we approve something like this and they get most houses done, and then they say, well, commercials, nobody's coming, right? Nobody wants it. And then they come in and then they claim a hardship that they can't get the commercial to come. And that almost compels the commission to then do away with the commercial and give them more houses, right? And so I guess I want that conversation in the record that we see this as commercial. I'm perfectly fine with the phase 3. I think that I understand that Commissioner Farnsworth's question is theoretically possible, but I think that cuts out such a large part of your potential profit margin that I doubt it. Right. I just want, there won't be any of us here 15 years, 20 years now that is looking at, so if somebody comes, right, grandson comes up and says, well, I can't get any, you'll still be, all right. I just want to be able to pull the record and say, hey, that board acknowledged that, that there was going to be commercial there, and we're willing to wait for it, but we're not going back and letting houses being built right up onto 26, right? It's going to be commercial. It's going to be in the overlay district. It's going to be built nice. It's going to be attractive gateway into the community, those kinds of things. So I think it's important that we're as honest and transparent up here as we can. So I've got one commissioner, you were not okay with no compromise, but now we have a compromise at 75%. It does trigger some of the commercial. Is that going to satisfy you enough to get you in the right headspace? Okay. Commissioner Clark.
We're sitting up here just really beating a dead horse. The developer's right there. He's here to make money. The commercial's in the book. Is the commercial here for good in the books? Is the line drawn in the sand? If it is, it's over with. It's commercial property. And he just said, if you'll open the floodgate and he wants somebody to come in to buy it tomorrow, he'll sell it. He'll build the road in. He'll put the pipe in. I mean, is there anything else that we can't understand about this?
No, but some of us have gone through the process.
I understand.
Where people came back and said,
well, is the
I can't
line
get
in the
commercial.
sand?
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to get in the record. Line in the
Line is
sand,
in the sand, I'm good with it. It's commercial.
okay? Other deliberations. Okay, I have a motion with those two things. Commissioner Martin?
More comment than anything. I really appreciate the citizens coming out and really kind of vetting through this. Hopefully, we've all did what we always do and kind of come up with something that's agreeable or close to agreeable for everybody. There's even a couple more things that we want to try to address moving forward. So I'm happy with where we started the night and kind of where we are right now. So I appreciate everybody's thought there.
Any other comments up here? Public comment. Come on down, sir.
I'm Larry Turner. Someone said a while ago that they needed to build the houses before the commercial would come. If you want to see the opposite of that, go to Ocala. That's all you got to do. Go to Ocala. They're growing. Do we want to grow? If we want to grow, we need commercial. We need reasonable commercial. We need houses. But we need people to stay this side of the road. That corner up there would be a fantastic spot for a motel. And we need a motel.
How about a hotel? All right, let's get a hotel.
We got a fire truck that'll reach it. We got a fire truck that'll reach it. I'm fine. You know, I just, to me, if you go to Ocala and look, they got commercial buildings, buildings built down there, and they got people moving in them. So to say that the commercial can't come first is dead wrong. Dead wrong.
Thank you, sir. Other public comment? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
No.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Mazon?
No.
Motion passes 3-2 with Commissioner Farnsworth and Mazon in dissent. And we will move on. We're back to legislative hearing for the rest of the night. Congratulations. We look forward to some beautiful houses. Mr. Attorney, would you please read into the record on second reading ordinance 2022-36/CPA 22-10, please?
Amending ordinance number 4-91 is amended relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraphs 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to planned development on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers 01923-000-000, 01923-004-000, 01923-007-001, 01923-008-000, and 01923-009-000, consisting of approximately 220 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2022-37 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
John Paul?
Thank you,
Take us
Mr.
away.
Mayor. Thank you. Again, John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. This is the second reading of ordinance 2022-36. This is the land use component. We went out of order this evening because the rezoning had the development order attached to it with all the conditions. And that's only had a first reading, so we put that first. Now we're considering the land use. We're on second reading for the land use. Approving this will allow us to reclass the land use and then send it out to the state for acknowledgement of the change of land use. This doesn't approve the rezoning. That still has to come back for a second reading, just to be clear. So just a little bit of history on this one. Originally reviewed November 1st, 2021 by the Planning and Zoning Board with the rezoning. Again, put on hold for the overlay district. This came back before the City Commission on July 11th. It was approved at first reading 4-1. Transmitted to the state agencies. Generally had no comments. FDOT did voice some concerns about the intersection of 26 and 41. As well as southbound traffic on 41 that this may generate. But generally, it was mostly canned comments or no comments at all, no objection. Here's the subject property within the city of Newberry. The proposed land use would be planned development. Unlike other parts of the city, this is outside of the economic development overlay, so for that reason, it does also have to carry the land use of planned development. So that's why we're changing it to planned development this evening. Staff does find the petition in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. And I'm just going to jump ahead here, and staff does recommend enactment of this ordinance. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Questions? If there are no questions, I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor?
Bless you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Farnsworth.
No.
Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Mazon.
No.
Motion passed 3-2. Commissioner Farnsworth and Mazon in dissent. We will move to item number 7, which is ordinance 2022-59/LDR 22-20. Mr. Attorney, would you please read that on second reading into the record?
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended, amending Appendix B, Article 4, Section 4.1, zoning districts, and adding Section 4.23, public facilities, establishing a public facilities zoning district, providing for development standards within said district, providing for codification, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-59, LDR 22-20, upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
John Paul, you're a busy man tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. I will be presenting the second reading of the new Public Facilities Zoning District, that is ordinance 2022-59. Because the second reading, I'm going to give a very brief presentation. This was recommended for approval on December 5th, 2022 by the Planning and Zoning Board, with the added condition that a site plan may be requested during the rezoning process by either the Planning and Zoning Board or the City Commission. That is in the text now, so it'll be part of the ordinance adopted tonight. And this was approved on first reading on January 9th. Again, this is a public facility zoning district. It is for land owned by a government or leased by a government entity. Flexible development regulations, site plans may be requested during the rezoning process. City Commission approves the site plans, not the Board of Adjustment. And transfer of ownership does require an agreement kind of dictating the use of that land after the governmental entity releases control or the property be rezoned. Staff finds the request consistent with comp plan and the land development regulations, and we do recommend enactment of the ordinance. That completes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, this is second reading. Anybody have any new thoughts, questions, concerns since the first reading? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to the wastewater treatment plant expansion design services award, the moment we've all been waiting for. Mike, you ever gonna let Dallas go by there? I tell you, it was anticlimactic. Right? I was all ready to go, and then you were stuck, right? Yeah.
Sorry. Apparently I need to go on a diet. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. Tonight we're bringing forward for your consideration award of the design services engineering contract for the wastewater treatment plant expansion. Our requested action this evening will be three parts. The first will be for the city commission to accept the ranking committee's rankings. Second will be to authorize the city manager or designee to begin negotiations with the top-ranked firm and enter into agreement for engineering services. And third, authorize that should those negotiations fail with the top-ranked firm, that we can move to the second-ranked firm and continue that process until an agreement is reached. A little bit of background. As you know, staff has been working on the expansion of the wastewater plant for several years now. We prepared a preliminary engineering report, and in June of last year, the City Commission adopted the facility plan, which we submitted to DEP as part of our SRF funding. We're now moving into the design portion of the project with anticipated construction beginning next year, with the project finishing sometime in 2025. So as I just mentioned, in June of last year, the City Commission adopted the facilities plan. Subsequent to that, city staff began writing an RFQ for engineering services. We issued that RFQ in September of last year, and we received one response from an engineering firm. After reviewing that response, staff felt it was in the best interest of the city to reject the bid and reissue the RFQ to get a bigger pool of different engineers. So we did that in November, and in January we received 7 responses from engineering firms. The ranking committee, which was made up of the city manager, assistant city manager Jamie Jones, and staff from FMPA, met in a publicly noticed meeting in January to rank the firms. And they recommended to the City Commission that the City Commission accept their rankings and award bid. So here are the rankings. The top ranked firm was Atkins with 282 points out of 300. We have a representative from Atkins here, which I'm assuming is this one lone gentleman here. He's made it this far. Followed by Mott McDonald and so forth, as indicated on your screen here. The process, should the commission authorize us to proceed tonight, is that we will begin negotiations with Atkins to discuss scope as well as a contract. Should those negotiations be unsuccessful, we would move to the second-ranked firm, and so on and so forth down the list. State law does prohibit us from moving backwards. So, for example, if we were to fail to negotiate a contract with Atkins and move on to the second-ranked firm, which I believe is Mott McDonald, we would not be able to go backwards to renegotiate with Atkins. If a successful contract is reached between the city and Atkins, we would bring it back to the City Commission for your final approval at the soonest commission meeting we could. Funding for this project is included in your latest SRF loan disbursement. There's about $2.3 million allocated for design of this project. As a reminder, the total project is upwards of $40 million, but that funding has been approved. So again, it's our recommendation that the City Commission accept the ranking committee's rankings. You authorize the city manager or designee to begin negotiations, and then should those negotiations fail, to move down the ranking list. Myself, city manager Jamie are here to answer any questions, as well as Chris from Atkins.
And thanks to the hard work of our staff, we have received $6.5 million over the last 9 months in grants, so it's paid for. Don't give me that look. Yeah. All right, questions. Anybody got any questions? Commissioner Martin.
I want to hear from him.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
I
My
would
name's
just,
Chris Ritter with Atkins.
Yeah, just your expended elevator speech, where you are, what kind of projects you've done. Why should we care about you?
First of all, I will share, thank all of you for your service. I will be at my city council next week. I'm actually a city councilman for a small community south of Orlando, so thanks for your service. Exactly, and I've sat through many of these in different forms. So Atkins was a Florida company formerly known as PBS&J, acquired by Atkins in 2008, 2009 timeframe, but 60 plus years in the state. It is a Florida company. We now have approximately 3,300 people in North America, and about a third of those are still Florida. So we're very much a Florida company. We understood that was very much a motivation of the city, the team, to seek a firm that had that Florida-specific experience and understand the construction market and the methods for treatment of wastewater within the state of Florida. So we've been doing that. I've been with the company for about 5 years now. I actually spent the 10 years prior doing what Jamie does. It's been public service, doing capital program project management. I'll be your project manager, so I'll be the one making sure that we get the project moved forward with your aggressive timeline that you need to meet. And then tomorrow, hopefully, we'll be having a scoping meeting to discuss, to get moving, because we know just how urgent the matter is. I'll have 2 of my other team members with me tomorrow. Combined, probably have 70 years of experience. So one of the gentlemen's been with Atkins for 37 years. So he's touched a lot of wastewater plants across the state, some very similar to the planned facility here.
He washed his hands afterwards, though, right?
Every day. Often.
All right. Any other,
specifically Marion County, actually, with Silver Spring Shores, right down the road, not too far, it was actually a similar facility, oxidation ditch type treatment facility that your team intends to move forward with. That was completed. It was an expansion of that facility. It was put online in early 2021. We're currently working on projects for City of Winter Garden, outside of Orlando, Sarasota County, some of the currently active ones that the similar team that they've worked on recently.
have you ever designed one that was intended to be a regional facility and service other cities?
Actually, the gentleman I mentioned that's been with the company 37 years, when I was with the City of Altamont Springs, just north of Orlando, and theirs is a regional facility that serves the city, obviously, 3 other neighboring cities, as well as part of the unincorporated county around there. So I was the capital program manager running that. I met this gentleman as my consultant, and that was part of my choice in joining Atkins, was the experience I had with them as a team and a firm.
Anybody got any other question, Commissioner Clark?
You said the one in Ocala is pretty similar. Is it a regional?
I don't think
Or
the
is it
Marion,
just the scope and size is about the same?
similar in treatment method and similar in size.
So no, this is the only plant ever designed this way? Is this the only plant in America designed what we see here today?
No, not at all.
Then why did it cost $2.3 million to design it?
If
it's already designed, why are we redesigning it?
Because they were only just designed. Unfortunately,
Okay.
an engineer record's got to put his.
I knew there was a trick.
And the construction costs these days are very much a challenge as well for all of our clients.
It seems like
It's
a
a
lot to
tough time.
keep re-engineering the wheel. Re-engineering, it's the same deal.
I can assure you that our team is efficient and
Yeah.
have already
Maybe we
been
can
planning
save
for
some
how to
money.
do it as efficiently as possible
Maybe we can
for you.
save some money and keep moving quicker. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Just has to come online by 2026,
Absolutely.
right? Any other questions? You got any questions for staff?
I set Commissioner Clark up for that. Because mentally I can't handle it right. So I'll let him worry about it.
Yeah. Okay.
You did good, man.
Staff, are you looking for a head nod? You need a motion? Do we have a recommended motion? It's a 3-part motion. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion, as indicated in the backup.
Okay. So I have a motion from Commissioner Martin for the 3-part, seconded by Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. But get those folks up here tomorrow and let's get started. All right. Now, Mike, before we read Resolution 2023 into the record, we're going to debate what's going to go into Resolution 2023, right?
Agreed.
Okay.
And
Take it away.
Mr. Mayor, before we get started on the wild spaces item, just to Commissioner Clark's question about, has this ever been built before? In the wastewater business, we refer to the term strength of wastewater is, well, how much pollutants are in the wastewater? and it varies from community to community. So without me getting too much into detail, you might understand if I would tell you that Newberry has some pretty potent wastewater strength. And that maybe that's what justifies the $2-point-something million price tag that comes along with designing our treatment plant. If you disagree with me, I invite you all to take a tour of our wastewater plant. We'll go up on the headworks and you guys can tell me if we have excessive strength in our wastewater. Let me know if there's going to be more than one of you and we'll get it publicly noticed. Thank you for allowing me those liberties, Mr. Mayor. We're going to talk about wild spaces, public places. As you know, the county commission put together an initiative and a referendum in 2022 for a 1-cent sales tax. It was a 10-year program, and they intended for half of it to go to wild spaces, public places, and the other half to go for infrastructure. So tonight we're talking about wild spaces, public places, but I have every impression that what happens with wild spaces, public places will happen again with infrastructure. So when the county put the program together, they also included in their ordinance that was adopting the entire referendum that they intended to create a grant program where they were going to take $6 million of wild spaces money. $3 million of it they were going to gift to Gainesville. And Gainesville's 145,000 residents. And the other $3 million, they were going to gift it to all 9 cities, including Gainesville, through a competitive grant program. And they had intended for that to be a competitive grant like all the other grants that we apply for. You come up with your project, you know it's a $3 million pot. You explain to them how your project is beneficial to your residents, but all residents of Alachua County. That's one of the constraints, is it has to be a project that's beneficial. And tell them how much you need and how much we're going to provide for a matching grant. Their staff would evaluate them, rank them, and the commission would then consider granting you money. We've done it in the past, and the last time we did it, the commission agreed, preset a formula to give to all the cities. And it mostly resulted in Gainesville getting the most money, and I believe Micanopy getting the least. They're the second smallest. If you look on this table that is on the dais, it's number 1, the revenue, no, it's number 2, the previous distribution basis. You can see that was a $3 million grant and how they divvied up that money. You can also see in the very last column that on a per capita basis, that generally the smaller the population, the more they got on a per capita basis, with one exception, which is Micanopy. And the reason they didn't get as much is they just simply didn't want as much. They asked for a lower amount, and the county commission granted it. So we have this $3 million grant. The county and the 9 cities believe that pre-deciding what everyone's grant amount would be trumps a competitive grant program, and so we've been trying to come up with a formula, a distribution that would make everybody happy. The BOCC said if you predetermine an amount, we'll strongly consider it and likely grant it so long as you have unanimous support from 9 cities. Therein lies the problem. But so the 9 city managers sat down and we said, well, we did it before and we used what would be on this table, basis number 2. And everybody was pretty happy but Micanopy, and we see why. On a per capita basis, they didn't fare well. So we came up with number 3, which is we made a slight adjustment so that Micanopy kind of fell in the middle of La Crosse, which is slightly smaller than them, and Waldo, which is slightly larger. And the money that it took to make that up, I think we got from, I don't know where we got it from. I can't remember where we got it from. I developed these tables about 7 months ago. But we came up with something that looked like last time but was fair to Micanopy. And there were some people wanted to see a different split. The smaller cities still felt like that's not a lot of incentive, that these grant amounts are so small, they just can't do a whole lot with. So, so we had a conversation about doing something that's an even split. Since the wild spaces, the amount of allocation that we're entitled to that we get aside from this grant is decided based on population. If you got it's a per capita grant, and they just simply take our populations and they divvy the money up that way. So this grant from the county, we felt like, well, if we just do it on a per population basis, the big city just gets all the money. I mean, and this Gainesville would get about 85% of the grant, and Micanopy would get $25 towards their next project. And so we talked about, well, let's just look at an even split. So, which is terrible for Gainesville on a per capita basis, but they're doing really good on the per capita basis with the rest of the money. So we looked at the even split, which was $333,000 each for all 9 cities. And not everybody was in agreement with that. There were some people, some of the cities looked at a fifth way, and they said, well, Gainesville gets $3 million all to themselves, aside from this grant program. So they shouldn't be entitled to any of this money. And so it was a even split for the 8 cities that are not named Gainesville. And it results in about $40,000 more for each of the smaller cities, but it results in $333,000 less for Gainesville, and
$660,000 less.
Or $660,000 less, just depending on how you look at it. And on a per capita basis, even if you consider the $3 million grant that Gainesville gets all to itself, Gainesville still gets the lowest grant award on a per capita basis, just because they have such a population. So Gainesville objected, and the BOCC said that with Gainesville's objection, now they didn't vote on it, but in conversation with members of the BOCC, that with Gainesville representing so many voters, if they have a strong objection, we're not likely to honor the wishes of the 8 over Gainesville. We said unanimous, and so we would just make it a competitive grant situation, which in my estimation, with Gainesville having a much larger staff than any of the other cities, puts them in the driver's seat. They have grant writing staff, we do not. So in speaking with the city managers, the city managers are prepared to recommend to each of their councils, number 4, the even split message, which or method, which just seems to be the one that best addresses the needs of the most. It isn't perfect. We acknowledge that, but I probably could have came up with 50 more ways of splitting the money, and none of those would be perfect either. This seemed to be the best solution. So staff is going to recommend item number 4, the even split. I would tell you that the Alachua County League of Cities meeting, which is the mayors are in attendance and is certainly a non-binding vote. The League of Mayors voted initially for item number 5, which would exclude Gainesville. Gainesville wrote a pretty testy letter about it, and I think the League of Mayors reconsidered it, and Mayor Marlowe was there and I wasn't, but I think they again voted to go back with number 5. Is that correct?
Well, there's only one other wrinkle that Mike hasn't hit, and when the League of Cities met, all of the cities were there. All of the cities were there, but Gainesville. And so they voted for number 5. Then Gainesville wrote that letter. At the next Alachua County League of Cities, Gainesville showed up with an attorney. So, we had a conversation, but what failed to happen in between those 2 meetings was just what Mike said. The attempt to go to 4 or 5 was an attempt, because you'll see Newberry kind of gives up some in that process, to shift that money down to the Hawthorns, the Micanopys, the Waldos, because as you guys know, it's really hard to build a playground with $100,000 these days. That gets you a slide. And so 333, 375 at least gets, Micanopy enough money they can do something. So, but we didn't communicate that between the meetings, so it came off to Gainesville like it was just we're just cutting you off, not we're trying to band together and help out the smallest cities. So the Gainesville commissioner, brand new, right, poor guy, right, he had to endure all of everyone's animosity and frustration, brand new to the scene, only been sitting on the seat for 3 weeks, hit the ground running, right?
There's a hazing process.
That's right. But he did agree to go back and change the narrative to the Gainesville Commission. So I will agree with Mike that it was unanimous for number 5. But I also heard loud and clear at the second League of Cities meetings that the managers do not want to do the competitive bid process. It's just too much work to go after 300,000. And so there was the unanimity to, I think if we were all to stand behind number 5, I think we have a shot. But I do not believe that we're all going to stand behind number 5. I think that a lot of the cities there are going to go with number 4. 4, when you look at the per capita, 4 does have something to say for Gainesville. It still gets, everybody enough money to do something. So what I would propose is that we write up the resolution saying that our first preference is number 5, but we will happily accept number 4 if that's. It's a one-time shot until they put it back on the ballot.
This month.
For wild spaces, for this 10-year program, this is a one-time shot.
This is all we're getting out of it.
No. Remember, we get $4.5 million. This is off of the county's cut, right? So the county took $12 million off of their cut, $6 million for infrastructure, $6 million for wild spaces to redistribute back out.
This is on top of the rest of our money.
Okay.
So this is just about the little piece that they put aside to kind of partner with cities and do some grants and that kind of stuff, incentivize. So that's what I would say, write up the resolution saying preference number 1 is 5. If Gainesville will be gracious enough to help us help the smaller cities. If Gainesville cannot find that in their heart, we'll take number 4.
Is it really about 333,000 they'll be losing? Or is it
They
they ain't losing nothing. They just doubled the salary of the commission, so they got plenty of money. Why do they need this kind of money?
Well, and I did make the point, since we had the Gainesville commissioner and the Gainesville attorney in the room, that, with the recent single-member district vote, I believe that shows a shifting of ideology in Alachua County, right? These kinds of ballot language have passed, but they have passed largely based on the urban density of Gainesville. The surrounding communities have not. And when you look at what places like Micanopy got out of it, you can see tangibly why they're voting against it, right? They may have ideological reasons, but they're also not getting enough money out of it to see anything.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of being able to continue successfully passing these kind of ballot measures, in my mind, $600,000 is a small price to pay to spread the love around and maybe win over some folks to say this is a good thing.
They're all about socialism and redistribution anyway.
Exactly. I would say I wouldn't want a competitive bid this all and make staff
jump through hoops.
Just get our money.
Yeah, so.
I'm with you. I stand behind you.
5 is our first choice. 4 is our second.
I don't either.
Okay. All right. Everybody else? Do we need to read the resolution into? Oh, you already read the title? You already did? Did we read the title? Okay. And staff knows we're going to put 5 as our first pick, 4 as our second pick, and
there's go to number 4.
Newberry getting all $3 million as our third pick.
We're equally happy with 3.
Okay.
4 or 5. 4 or 5. Okay.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any I thought we did read it, no?
Do you have it?
Mr. Mayor, this is resolution 2023-14, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the proposed distribution of the funds received from the 1% sales tax for wild spaces, public places, and infrastructure, establishing and supporting proposed allocation and distribution amongst the Alachua County, Florida cities, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2023-14 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Okay, I have a motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor for the dice? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? There's your chance. Seeing none.
Not yet, I'll be there.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, comment, City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me get this over a little closer so that you can hear me when I brag about the $4 million grant that we were notified by the governor's office that we're going to be receiving for our wastewater plant. And it doesn't include the applications that we recently submitted. That was an application that went in late last year, later in the year. So that brings to total for the last 9 months, $6.5 million that we've received in grants for a project that we estimate is a $40 million project. So we got a ways to go, but it's nice to get out of the gate so well, Mr. Mayor. So I think that's at least helping Assistant City Manager Jamie Jones and Assistant City Manager Dallas Lee sleep at night. They're concerned about our ability to generate $40 million in revenue for a project, and so all of these great milestones are very helpful for us. So,
You guys just relax. Commissioner Clark's already said that if we fall short, he'll write the check.
He'll write the check for the difference.
Yeah.
And, Mr. Mayor, I was kind of hoping to keep that one under wraps because I didn't want it to steal anybody's motivation for going out and trying to get more grants. But we appreciate it, Commissioner Clark. Mr. Mayor, I also like to remind the commission, I think you all have calendar invitations for this Wednesday. Make sure I get that right. Wednesday the 15th. It is the Gainesville Sports Commission's annual meeting and dinner. If you'll remember, the mayor attended last year, and Newberry occasionally gets mentioned at a meeting like that we may have done something nice. No, our recreation department shines within Alachua County, and this meeting probably best exemplifies how the rest of the world views our recreation department. And so we've purchased a table. You get a nice meal out of it, and you get to see a lot of people lauding Newberry for our efforts in recreation. And so it starts with a social hour at 5 p.m. The meeting is held at the 300 East University Avenue. We have the table reserved, so if you'd like to attend, if you would let Ada or me or Travis know, we'll make sure whatever seats the commission doesn't take, we're probably going to have staff fill in. So if we get your RSVP, it'll help us to let us know who's going to be there. Oh, it's not on East University Avenue. It's at Celebration Point. I'm sorry.
So
it's
you have
at
a
the new
social hour
Sports
inside
Center.
the new sports event center, which just walked around in there.
And then at the Hotel Indigo is the event.
Who has RSVP? Do you have that list? It's on my calendar.
You.
Me?
And Travis. I'm out of town. I can't attend.
Anybody else?
I'll let you, I'll tell you.
What time is it?
Social hours at 5, and the ceremony starts at 6.
Sammy, you can take my seat.
Is that at the sports complex?
The social hours at the sports complex. Hotel Indigo is right next to it. So if you park at the movie theater, you can walk right to it in 3 minutes.
As soon as I look at the calendar.
I'll be working.
Awesome. And finally, Mr. Mayor, we have one more of these floating around. Do you know where it went? Oh.
Right here?
I'm embarrassed now. And on Thursday, February the 16th, at 6:30 p.m., we have the City of Newberry's State of the City address. I hear that this year's speaker is very dynamic, and we'll have a lot of very exciting message that I'm certain will be news you've never heard before. It'll be things that you're like, I had no idea. You'll walk out of there amazed at the things that the city of Newberry has accomplished in 2022 or will be taking on in 2023. We also offer, not as exciting as the message, but the Taste of Newberry begins at 6:30. It's a really nice event. I think you've all been in attendance, but please attend. Encourage people to attend and to get there early because the feedback we're getting is it's going to be standing room only. So looking forward to that event and hearing all of the great things that we accomplished last year and all the exciting things we will accomplish in the coming year.
Anybody who's not there gets ridiculed mercilessly. Mercilessly.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
I'm not as energetic as our city manager, but I'm gonna try, real hard here. I just want to mention our 2023 City Newberry Municipal Election, on our boards. It will be on Tuesday, April the 11th, from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. in the Methley Northlake Municipal Building, also known as Precinct 6, and it's adjacent to the City Hall building here. Qualifying period is by appointment. It begins Monday, February 20th at noon, and ends Thursday, February the 23rd at noon. So please, if you're interested in running for one of the mayor or there's two commission seats up, Group 4 and Group 5. And please contact me. On the screen, 352-472-2446. The registration books of the City of Newberry will be closed at 5 p.m. on Monday, March the 13th. And there's something else I had to say. Yes, here it is. Beginning February the 6th, which is behind us now, I can accept paperwork and hold it. Prior to the qualification period, I cannot qualify anyone, but I can hold your paperwork into that qualifying period.
And you can get the paperwork and then go get the bank account, right? I got that right?
Right.
So you can get all the legwork done before February 20th. So you could come in on February 20th with your bank account and a check and qualify.
And I recommend that. But if you just want to go through the process and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Look forward to a robust democratic process. Commissioner Coleman, you got anything tonight?
Man, I got a joke for you, man. Hey, man, I'm gonna be just like Maison here.
I'm waiting.
I don't sound like that.
That's controversial.
Man, I got a joke right here.
That's his only accent.
I know how to. What did the man with the broken leg tell his Valentine?
Oh, it's a Valentine's joke too. All right. Uh-huh. I got a crutch on you.
Maison, I ain't as good as you, man.
No, that was a good dad joke.
I did the best I could. That's it, that's all.
That's it. All right, Commissioner Clark. That's good.
You know, thanks to the staff, I say it, you've done a lot of good work's going on, and pray for those deployed, and God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Mike knew you're under oath. Did you write the speech for the mayor for Thursday?
You're under oath.
Can I plead the fifth?
Yes, of course.
That's a great idea, though. Next year. Commissioner Martin.
Our basketball teams are in the regional Tomorrow night is the ladies, Thursday night is the boys. And I know our son is on the boys' team Thursday night, so you better talk quick so that I can get over to the game. He is a senior, so it's his, potentially, if they get bounced, it's the last game he gets to play, so it means a lot to me. 7 o'clock. Everybody heard that? That's all.
Nobody will be offended if you sneak out the back. Come in for the taste of Newberry. Are you announcing the game?
I'll have to get back with you on that.
All right.
Yes, I am, actually.
Commissioner Maison?
Yes, staff, I wanted to give kudos to our staff. I was driving home, was it Friday? Thursday? I think it was Thursday. It was Thursday, I was driving home from work, and I work late. And I came upon Hardee's, and I saw Green out of my peripheral, and I did a U-turn. He was standing over at one of the lift stations. And so I pulled over, walked over, never seen inside of one of those things. Have you guys?
Yes.
They're pretty intimidating, depending on the one you see. And Green was just standing there, and I was like, man, what's going on? Everything all right? He was like, no. And if I'm explaining this correctly, the lift station wasn't operating automatically. He had to do it manually, right? So 360 days are in a year, right? 365 days in a year, 12 months. These guys are on call. People don't understand this. So between Green, Jamie Jones, and I think who else came out there? Bucky and a Greg. They were going to do a rotation throughout the night. Okay, while we're sleeping, they were going to be out there throughout the night rotating. Okay, if they couldn't figure out how to get this lift station to run automatically, they would have to do it manually. Somehow throughout the night, Green figured it out and saved everybody else sleep and time with their family. And that's my whole point, time with the family. I mean,
That's why we're civil servants.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just mention for the record that Green also asked me to call an emergency meeting to ask you guys to proclaim that no one could flush for overnight. But Jamie said, no, we're not going to do that. And so we had staff out there standing next to a manhole all night.
so yes, no, it was yes. So I just wanted to thanks to the staff. Thank you, Mike, for running a good staff. Thank you, Jamie Jones. Thank you, Green, Bucky, and Greg, right? Thank you guys. Thank all of you guys. Second thing, we have the Spring Festival coming up in April 1st from 9 to 4, okay? Sold out. All the booths, 120. That's right. Vendors, full day of entertainment, including 2 bands and 2 dance groups. Also they have like a kids section where they'll be taking character pictures and bounce houses and more. And they had at the Fall Festival, 4,000. So they're expecting the same amount with the Spring Festival. So if you can come out, show your support. And pray for good weather. There you go. This guy. Right? Right? No? I mean, red Solo cup, Bubba. No, come on, man. I gotta Hey, so yeah. So what does a sprinter, what does he eat before he meets? Before he does a meet? Track.
Yeah, I know what a sprinter is.
He fast. He fast.
No, I thought it was great.
Okay, let me get one more. Let me get one more.
You got another one?
Yeah, the crowd's very quiet today. Okay, so I'm doing a movie, all right? It's gonna be on Broken Bones. I just gotta find the cast.
Gentlemen, if you haven't got something for your wives for tomorrow, Hitchcock's, I think, is still open, so you can go grab some candies or something real quick. That one's free, right? Other dating advice is going to cost you money. Other than that, I'll see you on Thursday for things that you have never heard before about our community. We are, public comments. Public comments. Blame Commissioner Clark. He was down there getting ready. Yeah.
That's right, because this is important. I have two things. The first one is the most serious. I live on the corner of Southwest 259th and First Avenue. 259th has no stop signs on it. Most all of our city streets are four-way stops, but there are none. All the way from the driveway at the high school to 26, there's no stop sign. Pardon? No, they just don't have them. And I think the reason they don't have them is because the school buses come down that street, and it's convenient for them. And until recently, it hasn't really mattered a lot. I mean, I can look out my window and say, geez, they're going awfully fast. But lately, we have a lot of children in my neighborhood. There are 3 right across the street. There's 2 to the side of me. And then sometimes some other kids will come to play with them. They ride their bikes, they do their scooters, and they're all probably 8, 9, and younger. And it's a little scary. So either I'm asking if we can either get stop signs put up on 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue, or a bump or something. My street is probably, 259 is probably hard for a speed bump because it's the kind of road that is lower in the center so that it also acts as a drain over to that lovely big retention pond across the street. Okay? That's my serious thing. And my neighbor, she and I were talking about this and thought this would be a good idea. And the second thing is, this is really important. I just spent 4 days in Tampa at a softball tournament. You know, that happens this time of year. Well, my favorite team, everybody knows what a run rule is in softball. Well, my favorite team run rule 3 other teams, the worst scoring being in 5 innings, 21-0. My second favorite team, which was Boston College. I have a cousin who plays for Boston College, so that's my second favorite team. They won all of their games except the one they played against the Gators. So it was a good weekend, real good weekend. Yeah.
Sharing that with us. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned.